We all set?
All set.
I'd like to open up this meeting. It's about 6:04. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Dayton Select Board is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder in this meeting is myself, the chairman, Ken Pacheco, our clerk, Dr. Brett Sografris, our selectwoman, Nancy Goulart, Mallory Aristine is also present, and as well as Cable. So could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God.
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And could we please remain standing?
Resident of Dayton, and in her memory, I ask for a moment of silence, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So for announcements, the rabies vaccination day originally scheduled for April 25th has been canceled. The town of Dayton's food bank distribution will be held next on April 18, 2020, located in the town hall lower level as a drive-through. Effective April 1st, 2020, the town of Dayton will no longer accept contaminants in single-stream recycling bin. And everybody in town should have received this in the mail, telling them what they can and cannot put in the recycling bin. I also want to announce that WAGS, which is a rescue group in the town of Dayton, a volunteer rescue group, is pleased to announce that the Easter Bunny will be traveling through Dayton on Saturday, April 11th from 9 to 1, escorted by Dayton's finest and learning from Santa's annual trip through town. The Easter Bunny and his helpers will be out to wave to kids and toss some treats, prepped in compliance with all precautions, gloves, masks, pre-wrapped and bagged. Please wipe it all down anyway. So listen for the siren and follow his hippity-hoppity route here on the WAGS page and spread the word. And I don't need a motion, but I would like unanimous consent to have the Easter Bunny be an essential worker and be allowed to go through our town. Do we all agree?
Yes.
All board members agree?
Absolutely. Of course.
Oh, it happened again.
It keeps freezing up.
He hasn't left the house in 6 weeks. All right, Ron, I entered Ron Marino in because he's got an item later on in the agenda and he's here twice.
Yeah, I just switched over from phone to iPad, so the picture's bigger.
Okay, what color? Sorry, Ron, I gotta find you.
Thank you for joining. Ron, nice to hear from you during this
Thank you,
time.
Brett. I beeped to you yesterday.
I saw you.
Okay, I'm all set on the camera side, and I think, Ron, you're good.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, you got cut off a little bit, so if you could just start from what you were saying before you got cut off, your screen froze. I apologize.
When did I get cut off? At what point?
I think you need to read the whole thing again, Ken. The letter
Okay.
from the governor, the email.
Okay. I almost threw that in the wastebasket. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Dayton Select Board is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted.
It's gone again.
So we'll just post, we have a notice on the agenda that says kind of this lead-in, and then what we'll do is post the actual language that he's reading. I have that, so I can post that up. Selectman Chico, sorry, you kept cutting out. So we're just going to disclose that publicly, what you're saying. But the gist is, for the governor's order, we are doing it this way, and it's allowable under his declaration of emergency. We're going to do the best that we can to provide public access to this recording.
How about the announcements? Was that heard?
I heard those.
Yes, right through the WAGs.
Okay. So the town administrator's report, please.
Good evening, thank you. So the first item on my report is basically requesting a formal vote from this board that you allow remote participation. That is not the same thing that you were just discussing, Selectman Pacheco, per the governor's executive order. This is a provision in the open meeting law that came into effect in 2010. We had utilized it in some of our emergency meetings and did so under that emergency declaration. And I'm asking tonight for a formal vote that the Board of Selectmen will utilize remote participation as discussed in the 2010 updates to the open meeting law going forward, with or without an emergency, that we would conduct business in this way, which allows in normal times with no emergency, allows the Board of Selectmen with a physical quorum to have at least one member call in remotely and participate that way.
Will someone make that motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve remote participation for Selectmen's meeting as provided for in the open meeting law.
Second for discussion.
Okay, discussion, please.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a quick question, maybe two questions. So my first question is this vote only for the Board of Selectmen, or is this for all boards, committees, and commissions?
That's a good question. I'll ask.
My understanding is each board or committee that wants to allow this would have to vote to do it.
Okay, that is actually my understanding as
and
well.
Sue Medeiros is here in the Selectmen's meeting room with me, and Sue is saying, yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? The ayes have it. Madam Administrator?
Yes. The next item on my report is a continuation from a previous meeting regarding evaluations and non-union salary increases. The decision that you make on this will impact some of the budget discussion scheduled for later this meeting. At the previous meeting, we talked about various versions. I presented versions 1, 2, and 3. And version 2 was what was voted, which I call the flat rate scenario. And this would be based upon the score, the non-union employee would receive a flat rate commensurate with that score. And so I also broke down in this version what I have dubbed version 1A, based upon the comments of Selectman DeGraffis at that meeting. At the end of our discussion at that meeting, Selectman Goulart had asked that I provide a breakdown of, like, a comparison of sorts of what the percentage would be versus the flat rate. And so I took the liberty of also doing that for version 3, just so I would have complete data for you to always see. So that is what is in your packets tonight. I I color coded it. Hopefully that made it in your packets to try to break down simply what we were doing there. So you could see the scale and the responding numbers.
So we voted on version 2, correct? The last time.
Yes.
And if I remember correctly, I voted against it, and the other 2 board members voted in favor of it.
That's correct. Ken, wait a minute, you went out again. We didn't hear what you said, Ken.
I have a suggestion for you. Can you call the number and then you would mute your screen and then call in?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
So, Mr. Chairman, what Mallory is what the town administrator is saying is there's a number that you can call in from your telephone in your house. Call in, so because sometimes you come in and out and we can't hear you, and then mute your computer once you've called in so the audio is a little bit better.
So is that number on the email?
I'm going to send it to you right now, so it's
Okay.
easy.
Yep.
But for the public, what Chairman Pacheco was saying is true. Selectman Goulart and I did vote for version 2 of the proposed non-union salary increases with the evaluation scale. So those 2 things would be linked. And Mr. Chairman did not. So that's all he was saying when his audio was muted, when we couldn't hear him. So that's just a quick recap. The reason this is on the agenda is partly, well, I don't know if it's partly. I think I did actually end up requesting this be back on the agenda. Part of the reason I did is because I had I had thought a little bit about the impact that picking version 2 could have on potentially people with the highest scores. So the employees who are really performing above and beyond what the expectations for that role would be. And so that is why we're here.
So I have a question for the town administrator. Have you sent that email yet?
I'm doing it right now via text message, so you can just click the
Okay.
number.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, you probably can see me doing that. I'm just verifying the password. Did that go through?
Yes, it did.
Okay. Sorry about that. Sent you a lot of emails today.
Yes, for while our chairman is dialing in for his audio, I did just want to really thank Mrs. Brady. I really wanted to thank Cable Committee, our town administrator. The town has never had remote participation before, so this is all really new. So I thank everyone for bearing with us, but I did want to emphasize how everyone really came together this morning to make a Zoom meeting possible, to really limit the number of people that are together at Town Hall. And I really think that it was a collaborative effort. And other than the Zoom account, which of course, you know, is a nominal fee for the town of Dayton to have users and such, really this all happened, this whole remote participation thing happened with, you know, equipment that we already had, a TV in the meeting room that was already there, a laptop that we already had for the town, and then an HDMI cable. So this is all in-house. So I really just want to thank everyone for working diligently, and I really think that this is really big for the town. This is something we haven't had to do before, and it makes me really happy how everybody really came together to make this possible, so that we're really, you know, abiding by the governor's guidelines pursuant to social distancing and such. I just wanted to thank everybody.
Thank you, Brett. Oh, excuse me, Selectman DeGrasse. Is it working out, Ken?
No.
All right, let me double check my phone number here.
You entered 8850553. This meeting ID does not exist. Please re-enter your meeting ID.
Huh, that doesn't, is it a meeting ID or the password it's asking for?
It's asking for the meeting ID.
Oh, okay.
I'll give
Coming
that
right
to you.
Coming right up.
Oh, okay, you're gonna give it to him. Yeah, that's the password, Mr. Chairman.
I apologize. That's my fault.
It's okay.
Here you go. So that third thing I just texted you, that's the meeting ID, and then a password's required these days because
Okay, I'm gonna call again.
as people may have noticed, some Zoom meetings have been compromised with certain individuals playing what they think is a funny joke. And so now they're all required to be password protected.
Hang in
Yeah,
there.
it's true. No, it's okay, Mr. Chairman. Take your time.
This is what we call ironing the wrinkles.
Right. Like I said, this was something that never existed in the town. We just actually, for people who are just tuning in, we just approved remote participation for the board. So we obviously did not have a system for remote participation before this. So this is something that really came together in a team effort at the last minute, with the stuff we already had, the tools we already had available to us. So I'm really proud of it. And thank you, Madam Administrator, for helping as well. We had a fun morning, right?
I can't read my own handwriting.
We can't help you with that, Mr. Chairman. The other good thing is that sometimes our chairman's video goes out too. And so if he's calling in from the phone, we'll at least still be able to hear him, even if the video lapses. So that's good.
I'm gonna just explain very briefly the next item in the report, just in the
Please.
interest of time. What, you want me to wait? Oh, no, he said to
no,
go. Okay.
No.
Sorry. So the minimum maintenance bylaw is something that had been requested by the board. It was a goal. I know Selectman Goulart and the Highway Superintendent Tom Ferry have been talking about this for quite some time. So I prepared something very, very bare bones. I'll get to this. It is.
They're saying that that's not a valid password.
Okay, well, Zoom is failing us. Let's just go with what we can. Let's go back. Let's go back to that previous conversation and we'll just make do.
You're
I can't say
frozen.
we didn't try. I'm frozen.
You're frozen.
I can hear her.
Okay, all right. If I do this, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm moving. All right. Do you want to just continue and pick up on the non-union salaries discussion?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Yes. We can continue.
All right, take it away, board.
Okay, well, I have some concerns about it. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, I have some concerns about it. We voted on it the last time, and what was voted on was actually less than what I was suggesting for some anyway. If you're making over $100,000, I said that they should be able to get what the union employees are getting, which is, for example, 2%. Assuming they're doing their job well, they should get that 2%. And going by the figures that was approved at the last meeting, some employees would actually make less money. So I'm concerned. I think the highest amount that anyone should be making is what their employees, the union employees, are getting in their pay, their wages. So I'm not in favor of 3% or anything higher than that, because we're talking about some people who are the highest paid employees in town, and they're getting, some of them are getting paid over $100,000. So I'm a little concerned about how much money that they can get. So I'm in favor of, first of all, I think if somebody's doing a poor job, they shouldn't get a pay raise. If someone's doing their job well, which we hope that all employees are doing, they should get what their union employees are also getting. So I'm in favor of, if we can word it that way, that's fine, but I'm not in favor just the scoring is done by one person, and for all the evaluations, with exception of the town administrator that we all do an evaluation for. So although we have a very good town administrator presently, I'd be a little concerned about voting on something that could be something that would be considered permanent. And we may have a town administrator who is not as objective as our present town administrator is. So I do have some concern about this scale. Is there anyone else that wishes to comment on it?
Yeah, if your only concern is that in some cases, some employees would be getting less than, for example, what a 2% would recognize. So increase the fixed dollar amounts. What do you think is a reasonable increase for somebody at the top? So if you set the highest number, right now the highest number is $2,000, okay? If you think that number should be higher, then set that number higher. And then as the grades or ratings decrease, you would decrease them accordingly. You'd still have a fixed rate.
I'm more concerned, if you're asking me, I think it should be a percentage. And I think it should be no higher than the highest what the union employees are getting. So if they're getting a 2% increase, if the Board of Selectmen voted for a 2% increase for union employees for that year, and the supervisor is doing an excellent job, has had a very good evaluation, then I'm in favor of giving them the 2%, but I'm not in favor of giving them higher than what the union members are getting.
But that's percentage, but dollar-wise, it would be higher. That was the discussion we had at the last meeting.
So I actually, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I want you to finish.
No, what you voted on the last meeting was a dollar figure. And for some people,
right,
if they get the 2% that their employees are getting, it would actually be more than what you guys voted on. I'm in favor of doing it by what the union employees is getting percentage-wise. But I'm not in favor. I voted against the fixed number. And I understand that the reason why this is being brought up again is because some people are concerned less than what for example, the 2%. If you're making over $100,000, it's 2%. It's going to actually be, they're going to be under what you voted on at the last meeting. They're going to actually receive less. So I'm more in favor of, like I said, them getting the union wages. But Dr. Z, you wanted to ask a question when I interrupted you.
No. I wanted you both to finish your thoughts since you were both going back and forth on that. So I appreciate that. I guess my thought is, I'm not thinking about this in terms of this person makes the most. And so 2% would, for this person, if we followed, if we did a flat rate, would be less than if we did a 2% following their union. I'm not thinking of things like that. How I'm thinking of things is like in terms of the people that get the best scores. I just feel like there will be individuals who have the most responsibility for their, have a big department or have a public safety department. I'm just giving an example. Have a lot of responsibility, and giving them a flat rate would be a lot less than just even doing, as you were saying, Chairman Pacheco, following the 2%. So in that respect, I feel like I should have thought that through, because sometimes when you make a vote, there's like an upside to something and a downside. And I guess I don't know who I'm agreeing with or disagreeing with on this. I feel like we all have good ideas on it. I think where I want to go with this is, in a perfect world, right? If we all agreed, I would want it to be based on a percentage. So I guess somewhat I agree with Chairman Pacheco. But I also agree with Selectman Goulart in the sense that if the issue was the flat rate was a lot less than they would even get following a collective bargaining agreement that, the people they oversee follow, I also agree that we could up the flat rate at least to be somewhat commensurate, with a percentage if they were following the CBA. I don't know what the right answer is, but I kind of leaning towards rather a percentage. I don't know how we could get a flat rate to be I don't know what word to use. I'm just curious to see how we all come to some sort of a consensus on this, since we agree in some respects and disagree in others.
If we're going to go with a percentage, that's status quo, and that's what we've always done. That's not what the assignment was. And if you remember from the last meeting, we talked about what the assignment was. That's how we happened to come up with 3 scenarios: percentages, flat rate, and the other. It all goes back to the Finance Committee asking us to come up with a rating system, which we did. We were not prepared the previous FY19 fiscal year to make dollar recommendations. So that's why the town administrator and I went to work on this and talked about it, and she came up with 3 scenarios. This scenario, if we were to go with version 2, you can change the dollar amounts right now. And this is not cast in stone. Next year, when it's time to set salaries for the new budget year, the Board of Selectmen will say, okay, this is what we did last year. Do we want to do this year, or do we want to go to a different method of recognizing or granting pay increases for non-union personnel? It's not cast in stone. Again, all the town administrator and I were doing were following up on the assignment we were given, 3 years ago? So that's how we arrived at this. Quite frankly, if you wanted to stay with a percentage, she and I could have saved a lot of time, a lot of work.
Well, you, in the course of your work, though, you came up with version 1, which is based on a percentage. So what's the issue with us
No, that was
going on version 1?
No, version 1, that was not it. That was not what I was looking at. I asked for the second version because it's different. If you're going to go with a percentage, that's what we've always done, is a percentage.
No, but the problem was that we didn't have a system to base someone's percentage merit increase on objective criteria. It was a two-pronged system where it was an evaluation, a merit scale evaluation, plus the actual performance evaluation. So the point was to marry the two. That was my understanding of the assignment.
Well, that's
not whether
we
it's
ended up
flat
with.
rate or percentage. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's how we kind of ended up with a combo on number 2.
So if I can, is it all right if I offer something? All of you make valid points. Like it all culminates into a very valid, strong discussion, and there's pros and cons to both. I completely see Selectman Pacheco's points, and also thank you for those nice words. And I see you didn't say it this evening tonight, Mrs. Goulart, but previously you had said you have a flat rate and you can budget for it, and it's a nice way to control costs. It was a comment from our previous discussion.
Right.
The version 3 is why I like it, because you have, as Selectman Goulart called it, the status quo of the 2%, which is similar to what the unions get. Just, none of our unions are evaluated right now, and they get those negotiated increases. And it has the idea that you keep that separation between department head and union employee, so you keep that going. And then the flat rate, in addition to the 2%, provides the merit increase, provides the incentive to be a superstar, to work on that next project that will make Dayton a leader in some way, or kind of show off what our ability is down in Dayton. I was bragging about us today on a meeting as well. Being able to have our department heads look at something and provide a goal, provide something, to really think outside of the box and creatively to propel the town forward, and align themselves with the mission that the selectmen set up in that 5-year plan, things like that. So that's why I personally like version 3. That being said, our economic climate has vastly changed from that meeting to this. So I want to just have a reservation on all of my comments. Philosophically, I like version 3. Realistically, I just don't think that's in the cards for us going forward.
So
I think the problem,
yes, Mrs. Goulart.
I think the problem with version 3 is the numbers are too high. How do we justify to anybody that somebody is entitled to an increase of $3,656 change?
I'm not married to those numbers. They were in there as a illustrative model. If you want to, the idea was, okay, if the 2% has been the going status quo COLA adjustment, then the flat rate. I mean, you can change those around, but that's the idea behind it is you have I've met everything I'm supposed to do, and then I've gone above and beyond, and you have that incentive built in. I apologize. I should have led with that.
Yeah. Looking back at some of the tough times we've gone through, and I agree with what the town administrator said because of that email I forwarded to all of you from Representative Haddad, where state collections are less than anticipated. At the MMA meeting that I attended today virtually, there was concern that some of the state aid that has been promised to us this year may not arrive because they referenced 2008. And that was the year Dayton took a hit for over $83,000 in state aid that never arrived. If in fact we want to, let me say, react more responsibly to the situation we are dealing with right now today, and the apparent, I'll call it a threat, that there was not going to be additional state aid next year, which is the year we're budgeting for, and there's a potential we could get hurt this year, then I'm more inclined to say, in the past, what we have always done through tough times, our employees have always gotten their increases based on the collective bargaining agreements, and therefore, for this upcoming year, I will support Selectman Pacheco's suggestion that since there are too many unknowns, maybe we would just hold this for FY21 and go with the amounts that have been negotiated, and department heads would receive what their the people they supervise would get in a collective bargaining agreement.
So the only issue with that, there's 2 union agreements that are not. One is clerical.
And the other is dispatch communications.
Yeah, exactly. But if they're not settled by the time, we don't even know when we're going to have a town meeting. But let's assume it was June the 1st and those contracts weren't settled. Then what we would be doing is going to the fall town meeting to get the money we need. Or we would hold a special town meeting to ratify those contracts and get the money to do it. So those 2 contracts shouldn't hold things up.
I think I'm sorry if this is out of line. I apologize. My recommendation is that if there's any increases given at all, and again, that it just be a flat 2% for all non-union. And then if things change and are more optimistic, you can go back and revise. But that, again, I don't necessarily feel comfortable going forward with.
May I interject?
So many unknowns, yeah.
So this is, for anybody who is watching and can hear us, this is a really good case of your government working, really under the guise of the open meeting law. Like, I think we all came into the meeting, we all had ideas about where we stood on this particular item, but I think for me personally, I think both Chairman Pacheco and Selectman Goulart gave a compelling case that I really don't see an argument against, especially when we are dealing with something that obviously your local government cannot control in the form of a pandemic, in the sense of how things develop worldwide. So I think given all of those unknowns, what we can control in terms of your local Dayton government is things like what we're talking about tonight: salary increases, budget during difficult times. And I think that even though I agree with the content of what my colleagues are saying, in terms of just the realism of we still have those 2 contracts that haven't been negotiated, I think Chairman Pacheco is representing or going to be part of the clerical negotiation. I'll be part of the dispatch negotiation. I think given that, unknown, which is also an unknown. I think that the town administrator's specific recommendation of a 2% across the board for this fiscal year, I can support that, especially given we don't know how those negotiations, not holding things up. We're still, I'm happy to come to the table, of course, but that's how I feel. I agree with everyone, but the specific recommendation of the 2% across the board, given the two contracts that are out, I think is definitely palatable for me as a selectman tonight.
Okay, just so we don't throw out the evaluation process that's been completed, and we've all seen those evaluations, would you be willing to say 2% across the board with the exception of anyone that falls below a certain rating?
Before I give my response, I want to hear what Chairman Pacheco thinks, and I do want to hear what the town administrator thinks as well, because she was also another critical part in that evaluation system that
Sure,
you both created.
Sure, if I can respond to this. I agree with what Mrs. Goulart is talking about, that if someone doesn't have a very good evaluation, then maybe perhaps they should not get the 2% and it should be less. So I think we can vote on number one, we would have to rescind the previous motion that was approved and voted on, going by those figures that we had before. And I would be in favor of, I would support a motion to give the supervisors, the non-union employees, a pay raise of up to 2%, but not guarantee that everybody gets that 2%. Because there may be some, we have excellent employees. There may be a time when some employees aren't doing the best that they should be doing, and they should not get the 2%.
So, Mr. Chairman, before we get the recommendation from the town administrator, so is what we're talking about having a cutoff score for the 2% based on, oh, I'm sorry, I'm very close to the camera, based on that evaluation score, or do you want to, is this an either or? So this is for Selectman Goulart and Chairman Pacheco. Is this an either or where you hit this threshold score, you get the 2%, or is it you get this score, you get 1%, you get this score, you get 2%?
I'm in favor of if they get a very good score, they get the 2%. But if they got a less score, now we have different figures broken down here, then they should not get the 2%. If we want to break it down, be specific as to what, if they scored a certain score, what the percentage should be, I'm okay with that. But my point is that they should not be getting anything higher than what their union employees is getting. We would hope, as when I worked, we would hope that these people go to work every day and
Can you fade it out again?
Just the audio, Mr. Chairman.
Can you repeat that, Ken? No.
Yeah, it's just pride in the work that you do and want to do a good job because your name's on it. Is that right?
yes.
So,
Anything you want to add?
Mrs. Goulart. Mrs.
so
Goulart.
since Mr. Pacheco and I seem to be pretty close on the same page, there has to be a way to determine, as Dr. Z said, a point that at a certain point and above, it's 2%. And at a certain point and below, it's less than 2%. So what I'm thinking of, if you think about when you were in school, an 80 or above was a pretty good grade, okay? So if you could look at, when I say you look at the ratings that resulted from the evaluations and compare those to 80% and above. I mean, this is a math calculation. You would automatically determine the 2%. And I think 80% is reasonable. And then, or I don't know, 75%. But I think if you get down to anything below 70% overall, You shouldn't be getting 2%.
I think I'm about to throw a monkey wrench in this. What if we did, because you have historically given out 2% raises to these very same people, because they've been with you for a very long time, for quote unquote doing nothing. I don't mean that they didn't perform. I don't mean that they didn't do anything, but that you didn't have this performance-based evaluation and standards and putting people to task, so to speak. And so my recommendation would be, if 2% to your percentage point, if that's what you're going to keep giving, you still need that incentive piece. And I like that you hit a certain threshold and you hit a certain tipping point. And so maybe whatever percentage you choose, I'll use 80 because I think that's what you, score you use, and I'll use 80 because you had last said that. If it's 2% for COLA, because that's what the unions generally are getting. And then if you are a superstar on the evaluation and you hit a certain percentage point, that we'll just say 80 for discussion's sake, then the flat fee sends in, because I worry that if you're getting 2%, it's not, we demand quite a bit from our department heads. We really do. We give them 4 goals to accomplish. We give them a year to do it in. We demand professionalism. We have all sorts of grants. We have all sorts of extra duties for them to accomplish and take care of. I'm sorry for all my stalls. It's very distracting to do this. So I just feel that that second piece, that second step, has to be there for this to be a successful program. Is this the year to do it? Maybe not. And I just want to keep throwing that caveat out there that I don't take the current economic condition lightly. And it's on my mind constantly.
So
If I could,
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
yes, if I could speak on this, I disagree with that. They're in that position because they've done a very good job. They're getting paid very well for that position and all that responsibility. I understand we set goals and everything else, but we shouldn't be given a bonus, as I've said many times, because someone is doing their job. And so I disagree with that. I go along with what Mrs. Goulart was saying, that 80%, 80 to 100%, that they would get that 2% or what their union members are getting. And below that, they would get less than 2%. So I'm in favor of that. Dr. Z?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say, I'm not trying to cut anyone off, but I think everybody kind of feels the way I do. Sometimes it looks like people aren't talking and then you start, and so I apologize if I cut anyone off. What I do want to say is I'm proud of my colleagues, the fact that we're even sitting here tonight discussing the possibility of any merit increases, because, for example, where I do work in the private sector. I'm fortunate to have a decent, reliable job and work from home during this really uncertain time and keep my job, right? So in that way, I haven't been impacted economically. So I've been very fortunate. But what I will say is I did get a merit increase. I did a good job in my first, term, in my new role with my new company. And our merit increases are on hold right now. And we got an email from the CEO, and I understand it's tough. It stinks. It's not, doesn't make people feel good, because we know we work hard and we take pride in our work, to your point, Mr. Chairman. But the fact that we're here tonight and we're still even discussing this, I think shows, or should show, our employees that we do care. We do value your hard work. We are trying to figure this all out together on the fly, because things have developed very quickly during this global pandemic, and the fact that we're even here talking about it at all, I think is a nice thing. And I think whether we have a cutoff of 80% to Selectman Goulart's point, or 70%, the fact that we're here at all and are discussing granting merit-based increases, I think shows the heart of our town. So I guess that's my 2 cents on that. We can discuss the cutoff line for sure and get into that detail further.
Sure. We kind of really need to wrap this up. We have a lot of things on the agenda. So I will entertain, we're going to change it. We need a motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just want to comment. You and I think, are relatively close to what we think is a fair proposal. I do not agree with what Mrs. Aaronstein recommended because, number one, we don't give COLAs. We only give salary increases based on, which is what we're trying to figure out based on what tonight. Whether it's 2% at 80%, 2% at 75, whatever. But the other thing is, we've definitely got to have a connection to the evaluations. And to say you give somebody a COLA and an increase on top of it, you're picking and choosing. This is not fair. This is not fair. So I think what the 2% determine what the cutoff point, whether it's 75 or 80 and above, is 2%, and under that will be less than 2%. I think it's the fairest way to go. I don't think we can start picking and choosing and putting fixed amounts in and everything. If that's a nightmare.
I just wanted to add before we take this vote, Mr. Chairman, I know you do want to take a motion. I'm happy to give one. What I do want to say is, to Town Administrator Aaronstein's point, I'm willing to hear a more detailed discussion about these COLA increases. I do tend to, for the time being, in the current situation that we're in, which nobody asked for, I do tend to err on the side of caution just because that's what private industry is doing. That's what public industry is doing. But I do want to let you know, and not just you, Town Administrator Aaronstein, but the employees who will be under this. I do want to let you know, I'm willing to have that discussion next fiscal year, but I think we need to operate for this fiscal year under the guise of, we don't know how long we're going to be in this situation economically and also health-wise, public health-wise. And so I think our employees will understand us erring on the side of caution, because I think that's what the responsible thing to do is in the current climate. But I'm committing to having that discussion when things go a little bit more back to quote unquote normal.
Okay, I will entertain a motion then.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Yes, Mrs. Goulart.
I move that we approve a 2% increase for non-union department heads whose cumulative evaluation rating represents, I'm going to say 75% and above, while anyone whose rating is below that will receive a lesser amount, a lesser percentage.
Is there a second?
I'm going to second that for discussion.
I thought we already had discussion, but I'll accept.
Well, it is discussion on this motion now.
Yes.
I just
Any
have a point of,
discussion?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if it's a question or a point of clarification. Selectman Goulart, in your motion, is the suggestion that we're going to have another motion to clarify what that lesser than 2% percentage is below the cutoff?
I will actually add it to this if you've got something in mind.
I actually don't. I'm all ears.
Are you comfortable with 75? Do you think it should be 80? 75 is like a C. Something we'd be familiar with as far as grading goes.
Well, not us. Not us. We know other people who have.
Right, exactly.
I want to hear what Chairman Pacheco has to say. Because I do think that we should have high standards. I'm more comfortable actually with 80, but that's just me.
Okay, and if that's consensus, I'm willing to amend that, but I'm just trying to get some feel on this one.
Yes, I'm in agreement with that.
80%?
80%.
All right, so I amend my motion to read, department heads whose cumulative evaluation rating represents 80% and above, while anyone whose rating is below 80% will receive, anyone got a percentage in mind? 1%? 0.5? 1%?
One.
I'm okay.
I want to hear what Chairman Pacheco has to say.
I'm
Okay.
okay with 80%.
All right, so let me just read this one more time quickly. Mr. Chairman, I move that that non-union department heads receive a 2%, wait a minute, that's wrong order. We approve a 2% increase for non-union department heads whose cumulative evaluation rating represents 80% and above, while anyone whose rating is below 80% will receive a 1% increase.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, the ayes have it.
I didn't hear what you just said, Chairman Pacheco. I was just going to ask for an additional motion or something, that a statement that says this replaces the previous vote.
Oh,
Or is in lieu of or in place of the previous vote.
I didn't catch that you,
I heard it, Ken.
I didn't
Mr.
hear
Chairman. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion that will reflect what she just said.
thank you.
Okay? Mr. Chairman, I move that we rescind the motion at the meeting on March, we'll fill in the date, that said we would be using version 2, the fixed amount to grant increases for non-union department heads for FY21.
Second.
Is there a second? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose, abstain, the ayes have it. Madam Administrator.
So next is the minimum maintenance bylaw, and it's very bare bones, as I previously mentioned. I'm glad Mr. Ferry's actually on our Zoom call now, so Tom, please feel free if you have something to add. We had tried a stab at this 2 town meetings ago, I think, and we basically didn't hit all the bullets that are required out of Chapter 40, Section 6N of the Mass General Laws. And this new revised one does, but in a very minimal way. What this bylaw will allow us to do and what it does is describes the ways in which the town is okay with the highway department or the town spending public funds on private roadways and in what conditions we would authorize that to take place. And so basically it's all reliant on public safety, and we're limiting it to 2 times annually. Again, I base this off of Halifax, who has a bylaw like this. It's a very similar community to us. I liked that it was simple and straightforward and not a lot of gray, and it's now for discussion. And if you agree with this or make any changes, we would not then add this to the town meeting warrant if we were able to have that meeting.
I don't know how our chairman feels. I want to get the thoughts of Mr. Ferry before I weigh in.
Mr. Ferry.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Mr. Ferry.
Good evening.
What is your position on this minimum maintenance bylaw?
It should cure any curiosity we have to protect town's interests and still serve the residents that we have there, even though it's not an accepted road. I do have one question as Mallory read it again. Are we limited to the grading twice a year, the way you read it?
No, we are not limited. It's just something I wrote in there because I didn't want the expectation to be that we're going to be out there like we are on our regular roads. I wanted it says in no, it actually puts a limit on it. You don't have to do it twice a year, but it's no more than twice a year. But again, that is just to show that that's a private road. We're going to do what needs to be done for public safety purposes, but the town is not taking it over. And we have a handful of roads.
Some springs are worse than the others. You have a longer mud season, and it may require a 3rd time.
So you want to change that to 3?
I would say at least 3. 2 would be problematic.
I did not hear you, Madam Administrator.
Oh, no. So Tom and I were just discussing that going out to make repairs on a private way as a maximum of 2 times would be problematic for the highway department, and he is recommending that it be no more than 3 times, just increasing that top limit.
Mr. Chairman, that's A under that article.
Yes.
changing it from 2 to 3.
Yeah. So what is the policy now? If a private road needs to be graded, who pays for that now? Or who does that
The
now?
town does.
But they're not supposed to. The town's not supposed to do that because it's not an accepted road.
Mhm.
So,
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
this isn't going to get wrapped up tonight. I've crossed off most of the stuff I've read. I want to point out that this is actually being done at the recommendation of Attorney David Gay. That's why we've been trying to come up with something for so long, because the town has done this literally for years, graded the road, put gravel down as needed, and keep it open in the wintertime with plowing and sanding and that kind of thing. The opening paragraph, the termination to the terminology that says, selectmen are authorized to provide for the making of temporary repairs. Absolutely not. We are only providing, or our goal is to only provide minimum maintenance. So I've already scribbled some things to change that. Grading being limited to 2 times annually, the rest of that to me is unless required due to concerns for public safety. As Mr. Ferry said, we don't really have a mud season in Dayton like they do up in the further north, but if we were to have a particularly bad spring and we end up with mud and potholes, and even though he's graded, the problem's back, or so that is something that I don't think should be limited to 2. And I would be looking for feedback from the highway superintendent relative if something has to be done. Again, he would come to the Board of Selectmen. But like I say, I crossed out a lot of stuff, and in light of the time, I'm not going to go through all of this tonight. And such repairs shall only be performed on ways that have been open to the public for less than 6 years. Well, one of the problems we have, and we've had to deal with, we have unaccepted roads in this town that are paved that currently, if during a snowstorm, the party who is supposed to get these roads plowed does not plow them. The 4-inch, I'll call it the 4-inch rule, kicks in, and our street department goes into that development, plows the road, and we bill the developer who hasn't kept up his end of the deal. So we aren't only talking about gravel roads. I think what Attorney Gay wanted us to do was be all-inclusive. And somehow I think we need to work in that 4-inch rule, or whatever you want to call it. It's a practice now. But I'm going to suggest that we table this to a future meeting so that we have more time to look into it. I think we're at a good start here, but I'd like to have more conversations with Mr. Ferry about this, because I have real concerns. As a matter of fact, this really came up when 2 or 3 years ago, the thought was we were going to take over Dayton Rock Park. That's when this really was discussed in length. So anyhow, I don't think we're ready to approve this tonight. I think it needs some more work, and I'm going to make a motion that we defer this to a future meeting.
Before the chairman entertains any motions or I second any motions, I just want to be clear. Mr. Ferry, the highway superintendent, had reviewed the bylaw and was okay with the language other than the number in part A of this, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
and the number of years came to mind because we have developments that don't get finished. So that's where that number of years came in. I think the boilerplate we were using was a longer range, and we shortened it up. So it doesn't make it easier for a developer just to lay back.
I understand that, but we're already addressing that too, because we got developers that don't do what they're supposed to do. And you're already, again, the 4-inch rule, you've had to go in there and actually go on those private roads.
Right.
And that's minimum maintenance at that point, plowing them to keep them open for public safety. That's the reason you do it.
Our bylaws have a provision for that, I thought, that it's the fire chief And then it kicks in with 2 residents on the street can call, and that's specific to snow removal, where this would be more inclusive of the grading, the pothole repair, the actual structure. I thought that was, I don't have the bylaws in front of me, unfortunately.
So Town Administrator, if Mrs. Goulart's motion does pass, how does that affect the warrant that we're going to be discussing later? Do we have time to change it if we discuss this at our next meeting?
So technically, the warrant closes tonight based upon a previous vote of this board. But our next item is to talk about the coronavirus and some updates we have. And as part of that, state passed a law that makes it a little bit easier for municipalities to work through some of these problems. So I don't think her vote or her motion, does any harm at all, because we can delay town meeting. And if it doesn't go forward, we still usually have our fall town meeting and we can put a bylaw on then. This has been talked about previously, so it's not the first time that the town has seen it or heard it or discussed it. So I'd be comfortable putting it on for a special. It's waited for a while. I don't want to say it's fine to wait more. I'd like something on the books that addresses it, but it's certainly not gonna hamstring us.
Does this, just one other thing I was just thinking about, was this one of your goals as well? And how would delaying this till the fall, and I'm not giving my opinion either way, I just want to always talk about procedurally, what are we doing? Does that hamper you in your role with your goals or any of that?
I don't believe so, but you 3 are probably better to weigh in on that. My what is the word? Interpretation is, it's not that, I mean, the goal doesn't say that I have to have it passed, because that, what if
That's
the town,
not up to you.
but I have to just have worked on it. And to me, I'm submitting what we have so far. I've worked with the highway superintendent on it. I've had discussions with Selectman Goulart. I've researched it with other communities. I recommended the kind of bare bones one as more of a protection for the town. If I've submitted it to you for your review, I look at that as that it's done. I've met that, and I'm obviously going to continue to work on it. Just because the goal is over doesn't mean it stops. Like, I'm still going to work on it.
I mean, I guess my position is I feel comfortable with it as is, because our highway superintendent has reviewed it, worked on it with our town administrator, et cetera, et cetera. But if we're not causing any, harm by delaying it to make sure we address our other board members' concerns, I'm okay with that as well.
So
it should be right is better than fast, because this has been a work in progress.
Okay, so is there a second on Mrs. Goulart's motion?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm the selectman who, when we had to pick goals for the town administrator, I picked this one. This will have no effect on her evaluation because she's working on it. If nothing had been done at all, it would be a goal that wasn't attempted or anything. She's working on it. I feel strongly about this, that I should have had more input. Had I gotten this sooner, I would have. I'm the person who stood up at that selectmen's meeting and told all those people from the park I would not support what was being proposed that evening, namely taking over their streets, and that we would come up with some method, and it was David Gay who said, you need a bylaw to be able to address not only the park, but we have a street up near the high school, and we've got that 4-inch snow law that is kind of all encompassing. So I have not discussed this recently with Mr. Ferry. I have certain concerns that I'm sure he has the information or can get the information, but I agree. I want this to be as complete as possible, so we only take it to town meeting once.
Any further discussion?
No, I was just perplexed by the monologue, because it sounded like Selectman Goulart was going to support delaying it, and so was I. So I think we're all in agreement. I understand your position on it, and I respect it, and I think you were right at that meeting to say that, so that's why I'm going to support it tonight. Oh, no audio.
He's
Can you
calling
at least
for a motion.
hold
I
your-
feel like we need some American Sign Language, like,
Mr. Chairman, if you hold your thumbs up, I will take my
All
vote.
those, yeah, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose, abstain, the ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Ferry.
Moving right along.
Thank you.
my
Thank you,
update
Mr.
on
Ferry.
the virus is basically this bulletin from DLS. It's in your packet. It is a wonderfully as concise as it can be. The state legislature had passed an act to address challenges faced by municipalities and state authorities resulting from COVID-19, which provides us all sorts of abilities. My understanding is that we're going to meet in 2 weeks. If that's the case, then you can make some of these decisions at that time. We certainly have time. At least one of them, I think, is going to come into play at our next agenda item tonight, but it provides the boards the power to delay town meeting. It can be on or before June 30th. It allows the moderator to be able to extend. Right now, current state law allows moderators to open a town meeting and delay it for 30 days. This new law allows them to exercise that option more than once, as long as the state of emergency is still in existence under the state. Then we have the ability to, we're pretty familiar with this from our school experience, but operate in the next fiscal year, if we weren't able to have our town meeting before June 30th, operate under a 1/12 budget going forward, similar to how the school operated last year after DESI, right before DESI came in. So we're a little familiar with that. It also allows us to use our free cash before it's certified. If we get into a jam and we have to take care of that, it allows us to waive late fees, and penalties and interest for any tax payments. And we can also defer the due date to no later than June 30th. If you pick a date, it has to be no later than June 30th. And if you do decide to do that, the town treasurer needs to be in the loop. She would have to notify her vendors that handle online payments about not collecting interest during that time period. So if you want some more time to digest some of this, I thought that the bulletin did a great job explaining things in detail, but concisely and simply for us going forward.
Okay, I do have a statement to read, and
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
you're sorry? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I'm sorry. I jumped right in there. I was excited.
No, that's okay. Hopefully my whole statement gets in there. Today, this is for the town residents. To date, we have 10 confirmed COVID-19 cases in town. Their progress is being monitored by our town nurse, and they need to know that we are thinking of them. On March 16th, we held an emergency meeting in the Board of Selectmen. We voted on a declaration of emergency for Dayton to close the town hall to the public, keeping only essential workers, allowing other workers to work remotely, and instituted a spending freeze. Our library in prime time is closed until further notice. The Board of Selectmen would like to thank our first responders, the Board of Health, our town nurse, the Highway Department, our teachers and staff, and all of our dedicated town employees during this difficult time. Many are risking their own health in order to provide you with the necessary services to keep you safe. We are so proud of them. We would also like to thank all the parents that are at home with their children, teaching and helping to educate them. Please continue to practice social distancing, wash your hands often, and if you have to go out, please wear a mask. As a reminder, as we celebrate Passover and Easter, please refrain from getting together with family and friends other than those living in your household. This pandemic has impacted our daily lives and routines, necessitating our not being able to see our loved ones, our parents, our children and grandchildren. Some have lost family members to this disease. Many are not able to work. Things we took for granted, going to a restaurant, going to the movies, visiting friends, and just going out, have all changed. We are all in this together. We are Dayton strong. Keep yourself, your families, and your elderly neighbors safe. No one knows how long this will last. When this is all over, we will meet and celebrate.
We will meet and celebrate. That was the end. Madam Administrator, you're on mute.
I think he has a great idea. I don't really want to. There we go. Meet and celebrate.
Mr. Chairman, the last line we heard was celebrate in your statement. Can you please continue from the word celebrate?
The last word was together. When this is over, we will meet and celebrate together. Thank you. Be safe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anybody wish to add anything?
I just want to comment on today's MMA meeting, when Mrs. Aaronstein mentioned, deadlines and due dates and things like that. And I know that there's been talk about changing the date when real estate taxes are due. We certainly want to encourage everybody who can pay those taxes beginning of May to please do that, help us with our cash flow. The other concern is that if the due date for real estate taxes is moved too far into June, the question that arose at the MMA meeting is the money could come in after the beginning of the fiscal year, which would put it into the next year's receipts. And they're trying to figure out or get some kind of direction from Department of Revenue, local services on how to handle late real estate tax receipts that may come in after the 1st of July. So I just passed that on to you because there's a concern that a number of the communities, there were 21 communities at the meeting today, and there were a number of them that raised that issue.
Thank you. On the new business, vote to postpone the annual town elections and town meeting.
Excuse me, Mr. Pacheco, Mrs. Medeiros is here. I just want you to know if you want to call on her.
Sure, I'm going to want to speak to her on the next item,
Okay.
which is the proposed schedule for change of elections and town meeting. What is the board's position on this?
Mr. Chairman, point of clarification. Your question is regarding the town meeting currently scheduled for June 1st, right?
Yes, change the election and town meeting, yes. Currently, it's for June 1st. The election is for April 11th. We changed it at a previous meeting to possibly May 9th. So we need to discuss whether we want to keep it on that date or change it. There's been some suggestions, as you have before you, as well as changing the annual town meeting. So what is your feelings or positions on this?
I guess my question, so I'm going to support, and based on our previous conversation, the May 9th meeting date, which is for the annual town election. So I'm going to support that. Regarding the annual town meeting, I do want to ask a question before I kind of have a position, I guess. Do we have a deadline by when we have to decide to move the town meeting from June 1st to some other date?
Mr. Chairman, Mrs. Medeiros has just got my attention. I'm going to ask Sue, come over and sit here so everyone can see you, and I'll step aside. But I think
6 feet social distancing.
Oh, yeah, we will. She's been sitting at our table, but I don't think they can pick her up, so I'm going to move.
Thank you.
And just to be clear, Mr. Chairman, my question was about the town meeting, not the town election. I just wanted to be clear about
Yes, both those issues are before us, yes.
Yeah, she does want to speak on both of them, okay?
Yeah.
that. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. Okay, so we have been, the town clerks, the last couple of weeks, we have been going back and forth with the election division and Galvin's office about when they feel is like the best day to probably, well, the election's been postponed to set a new date. The bulk of the towns are in the mid to end part of June. Yeah, we hope if they're having their election June 30th, Bridgewater. The bulk are in the middle, anywhere from the beginning of June to the end of June. I met with Mallory and I spoke with the elections, and my recommendation, because I think May, when we've decided on May 9th, that's a month away. I think that's too early. I'm thinking my recommendation would be the annual town election would be June 6th, Saturday. There's a lot of new things that go along with this, I'll touch on really briefly. And that would move up the town meeting to June 15th, because I do need that week, because running voters lists, it's, can't have them within the same week. It's just, I guess we could, but it would just be wicked complicated. So,
Mr. Chairman, can I ask Madam Clerk a question about that?
Is she all done speaking on what she wanted to talk about for us?
well, it's fine. I just wanted to get those 2 dates out there,
Okay,
first of all.
Dr. Z?
I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, I didn't mean to cut you off if I did, but I do want to ask you, why are you choosing, or I don't know if that's a recommendation to have the annual town meeting on June 15th. Why not? It seems like we can push the town meeting to June 30th would be the last day, right? So why can't we have the election, as you're suggesting, on the date you're suggesting, first week of June, and have the town meeting not the next week after the election, but the week after? So you're giving yourself a week.
I only need a week, Brett. Really, I need, if there was the town meeting first and then the election, then I would need the 2 weeks. But if we did the election first on the Saturday, within 48 hours after that election, I can have everybody sworn in, certified in the state, numbers tallied. Versus with the town meeting, it's a little longer. It's, it takes a good week to get all those votes certified, get copies, to Chris, our accountant, to the board, to Mallory. So if it was vice versa, but I think this would work fine. Then if you have it on June 15th, it's still giving you a couple weeks. Remember, the new law that got passed only gives you to June 30th.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you do it June 30th, I think that's kind of close. I still think June 15th, if something was to happen, you have that flexibility, maybe, because like Mallory said earlier, maybe by then we'll have a moderator too. Your moderator can open the meeting with the town clerk and close it to another date. So I feel really comfortable with this date. It's not the end of the month, the June 6th election, but it's far ahead where we're not, they're saying, we're what, May 4th is the governor, I think was the date. So if we say May 4th and he comes around and say, okay, now June 4th, then what do we do? Then we'd have to cancel it again. But we do have that flexibility till June 30th, but I don't think we need to do that. That's my opinion. I mean, really, the board and Mal, you guys can discuss that, but that's my opinion.
So
because there's, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, you go.
Because there is, within that new law, they're making it, I shouldn't say easier, but I guess easier, because a lot of people come June is still not going to feel comfortable. I think if you even said the election was going to be July 6th, people are still not going to feel comfortable. So what they've done, part of that new law, is that we're going to have early voting by mail. So in other words, right now the only way you could vote by mail is through an absentee ballot. Okay, and you would have to be either out of town or disability in the hospital. With the early voting, it's not going to be like we did here in March, where people come into the town early voting. It's early voting by mail. It's an application they fill out, and what they've done, they've put this out there so people can feel comfortable casting their vote, but not having to go to the polls. And I guess I'm sure if you watch the news, a lot of people, there's a lot of stuff out there, do everything by ballot, voting through the mail. It's illegal. You cannot do that. You cannot deny a resident, a voter, to go to the polls to vote. But I think if we get the word out on the early voting, that gives us a couple months just about. I can get into that a little bit more. It doesn't have to be today, but I have it with me. I don't know if you can see it. It's an early vote. It's called an 2020 municipal election early ballot application. It looks similar to your absentee ballot application, but this is going to be on our website. I'm going to have some at the police department. I'll have some here. It's on mass.gov, election division. All people have to do is fill this out, and we're going to send them a ballot through the mail. I don't know if I have enough money in my budget for the postage, but we'll figure that out afterwards. But
our recoupable expenses.
Exactly. Well, yeah. So, I mean, this new law has made it more flexibility for the election. So I think that's a real good thing about the early ballot, early voting. I think a lot of people are going to take that into consideration instead of going to the polls. So that's out there.
I do have a question, Madam Clerk,
Sure.
about that. So if the board votes to change the election date tonight, how soon can someone apply for a ballot? To do a ballot?
Immediately. Actually, you have to vote tonight, because our election is Saturday. So you're not gonna have any other meetings before Saturday. So I have to get the information into can you hear me?
Oh, with a different day.
Right, so there's a form,
Report our day, I see.
right, so there's this form I have to fill out tonight and send either tonight or first thing tomorrow morning. It's a local election move request, and it has to be done before the date of your election. As you can see, our original election date is April 11th, to Saturday, so I have to get this over to the state tomorrow. Again, if something was to happen, you could postpone it again, but for now, our warrant is posted and it says postponed on it. So tomorrow morning, whatever date if you decide to, well, you have to decide tonight, whatever date you decide tonight, that will be put on the warrant. We do not need a new warrant. We don't need new ballots. We can use the same ballots. Absentee ballots have already gone out in the mail. They told us not to wait. Probably like 25 have gone out already. So immediately people can start applying for this tomorrow, an early ballot application. So,
I just wanted to be clear, Madam Clerk. I just wanted to make sure, of course, I'm going to take your recommendation because I know you know your department best, of course, and you've done a flawless job running the elections. I just wanted to make sure these were your recommendations and not like a state recommendation.
no.
Just to make sure that you have what you need to make things happen like you always do. That's all. So I feel very comfortable taking your recommendation.
No, the state didn't give any recommendation, actually. Pretty much what I said is the town clerks of, we have that town clerk association, and they pretty much have, we go back and forth 100 times a day, I swear, with all different kind of issues. And what they did is they did kind of a survey. What was your original town election and what date you're moving it to? And I would say that 95%, or maybe even I'll go higher than that, like 98%, all changed their elections from anywhere between first week of June to the end of June. There's still a couple that stayed in May, and I think one person is doing theirs the end of this month. But other than that, everybody's changed to June. I just feel more comfortable, Brett, if it was in June, because I think maybe by then people feel more comfortable getting out to the polls, give people more time to send in the early ballot application. So, after, that was, kind of my opinion. And I did sit with Mallory too before we met. We spoke tonight, all of us spoke tonight. And I do believe she's kind of in agreement with me that that's a good date. I mean, we could go a little later, like the 15th and town meeting on the 18th. I don't think we need to do that, but again, that's your call.
Madam Clerk, so your recommendation for the annual town meeting was June 15th, correct?
Right, again, town meeting is yours. The Board of Selectmen, sets that date. The town clerk does not. Versus the election, usually it's the town clerk in accordance with the Board of Registrars and with the direction of the state. And plus our bylaw says, first Saturday after the first Monday in April.
And I just wanted to get the date again. Your recommendation for the annual town election was what? June 6th?
June 6th.
That's a Saturday?
Yes. Our elections are held on Saturday.
Is June 15th is a Monday, right?
Right. And I think most of the town meetings are held on a Monday.
Awesome. Just wanted to make sure I have it straight.
That gives me 9 days, which is plenty.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to thank our town clerk for doing this hard work. I know she's been on the phone a lot with the state, so definitely want to thank her on that. I actually have no further questions. I feel really comfortable based on the information given this evening to change the dates for both the annual town election and the town meeting.
Okay, I'm going to ask that Mrs. Goulart return to her seat. I can't see her.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Stay safe.
You too, thanks.
Thanks.
So I will entertain a motion to change the election, the annual town election date.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion, or I motion rather, to change the annual town election date to Saturday, June 6th.
Second,
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, I abstain. I'll entertain a motion to change the annual town meeting date.
so moved to June the 15th.
Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, the ayes have it.
Before we move on, Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question of both you and Selectman Goulart?
Yes.
So typically what happens after an election, as most people watching are familiar with, is we reorganize the board. We're making the election happen in June, which we obviously, Selectman Goulart and I support. So majority of the board. How do we want to deal with this? Do we want to keep things as is, which I want to, I guess, just say, since we're at a public meeting, I'm okay with keeping the leadership as it is on the board, but I do think we should at least, maybe we do it at the next meeting because it's not on the agenda tonight, but we should at least come to a consensus on how we want to do it.
If I could comment on that.
Sure.
I think we ought to change the order or the organization of the Board of Selectmen or Select Board, hopefully be the Select Board, after the election, because we may have another member of the Board of Selectmen that we don't have right now.
Okay. So what you're saying
So
is,
I think we ought to keep it the same until after the annual town election. And then we'll see who's sitting up here and we can vote accordingly.
and
Chairman
that,
Chico, can I step in for 1 second?
Sure.
Kenny is right. It should, actually, your board, you don't reorganize until after the election, your first meeting after the election. That's when you reorganize your board. Board of Selectmen, Planning Board, and, any of those elected boards. So everything would continue as is, and then after the election, as per law, you then reorganize at your first meeting.
thank you, Madam Clerk. I appreciate
Welcome.
that.
Thank you.
It sounds like we were probably all on the same page anyway, but I'm glad that we all had that, that specter was raised and we got that established. So I want to thank everybody on that.
Thank you. On the new business, vote to purchase items for remote participation. Madam
Can I-
Administrator?
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Sorry, I was just gonna say-
actually, it's you, Dr. Z. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So so normally, yes, it would be our fearless town administrator. I had asked for this to be on the agenda under the guise last week that we didn't have the equipment and infrastructure required to make this happen. And so maybe the town administrator has a different opinion than me, but in terms of town hall, I don't think we need to purchase anything extra. And what I mean is a television or a cable or an adapter. I actually think we have what we need for town hall to make this possible.
I agree with that.
So I guess my point is, we don't need to act on this at all.
Okay. Moving right along, discuss and act on.
Mr. Chairman, move to table, move to table agenda item 8B.
Second.
I thought Dr. Z said to not act on this, but I'll accept that motion in that second. Any further discussion? Any further discussion?
Not on the table.
You're right, Mrs. Goulart. I just pointed at you, Mrs. Goulart, I'm sorry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. I'm sorry, Mrs. Goulart, I didn't mean to point at you.
No problem.
The next item, discuss and act on lane closure of Center Street for Bristol Aggie construction project. Superintendent, Mr. Ferry,
Yes, sir.
would you like to speak on this?
Yes, as you may or may not know, they're doing a water line replacement from 138 to the Berkeley Bridge. They already started earlier this week at the bridge, working towards that junction box near that westerly driveway of the Aggie. The phase 2 part, originally we were entertaining to do when school was out of session in summer, because that stretch of road is impossible because of the width, and the existing main is in one of the travel lanes. So to alternate traffic and whatnot, it would really slow down and create a long-term detour. They should be, the end of this week or early next week, be all the way up to that meter box, done with the first phase. So I'd like you guys to consider closing that section of the road while everyone's forced to stay home anyways, and try to get that phase 2 done, and it'll be minimum disturbance in our community.
I agree. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. Oh, you know what? Probably should clarify this. Mr. Ferry, what section do you want the motion to say? What section of Center Street from where to where?
It'll be closed from 138 to the town line. I'm not sure how they would detour traffic into Berkeley, that intersection. It would make sense to go back to that intersection into Berkeley, at Berkeley Street.
Oh, I see, but,
They would still have details to help our residents through the construction site. But it's a very problematic. They also has to set up a bypass pipe also, which they're working with the Board of Health on how to communicate with the residents with this virus.
Yeah,
and what hours should we say that the road is going to be closed?
That I believe you have to act on also. Obviously, setting up at 9 and closing at 3 doesn't give them much time to actually work. They usually start their day at 7. You guys can weigh in on that.
well, if we give them a time to open up the meeting at night, is the road actually going to be open? Or are they going to,
Yes, the road will be open every evening, yes.
okay. So do you have a suggested time?
I personally, I think you should shoot for the 7 because they got to set up and all the closures and stuff. I think Mallory wants to weigh in on this also.
You know me well. I just am also, while we're talking about a duration, a time period, if I missed that, I apologize. But is this a 1 week thing? Also to wrap that in together. Thank you.
Yep. Do we have a time period?
Yeah, obviously, when you're digging, they're going to be digging where the old main is after they set up the bypass, when everything is in place. In the ideal world, they're looking at 2 weeks. I mean, if you don't do the closure, you're looking at, could be 6 or 8.
So should it be up to 2 weeks then? We close it for up to 2 weeks or a little bit more?
If you need to vote on a time frame, I would say up to 3 weeks. So you have that window so you don't have to meet again to extend it.
What's the beginning date, Mr. Ferry?
They should be ready to start that as early as next week, pending on, that's pending on their communications with the Board of Health, because they got to figure out how to approach the residents.
So are we talking Monday the 13th, or the Board of Health won't be ready? Well, the road will actually be open to local traffic, won't it?
No.
So I think I understand what you're saying. So yes, if you don't mind, vote to start at April 20th for the 3 weeks. I mean, to close the road April 20th for the 3 weeks during the day hours only.
And 5 days a week.
Yes.
They're not going to work weekends.
No.
So April 20th through May the 8th.
Yeah, so we've already had a motion, so we're amending that motion. Is
Mr.
that correct?
Chairman?
Yep.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to amend the motion to reflect the changes that were just discussed, in particular the dates, April 20th through May 8th.
Is there a second?
Yeah. Friendly amendment, during the hours of 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Is that okay?
3 p.m. is okay, Tom?
Yes.
Yep. And there was a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? The ayes have it.
May I just ask a question of the highway superintendent?
Yes.
Are we going to notify Berkeley that we're going to be detouring traffic, or is that the job of Gilbane?
It would be the job of Gilbane. It's actually that third party under Gilbane.
Oh, okay.
I also have a follow-up question too, if I may.
Yes.
So if we have to make adjustments in that site, how do we, and we need a vote from you guys, when are you meeting again? And how do we handle that, or just speak with our chairman?
You can also do executive order if the board isn't, and then what we do is check with the other two.
May I make a comment on that? I feel very comfortable if, especially given the current circumstance, having the chairperson, whoever that may be, make that an executive order and then come before the board at the next meeting for ratification. I think everybody understands this, given the circumstances right now.
Okay.
It'll be the current administration because the election is not till June, so we're all in the same places. Mr. Ferry, one question. So the road is closed to the public. The residents of the street, it'll be local traffic only, right? So they can get to their homes or whatever?
Correct.
And obviously the Aggie School and the construction site will be able to receive materials and send out milk and things like that.
Right, and emergency vehicles can get through, obviously.
Okay. Does Mass DEP have to weigh in on closing that road?
No,
Okay.
they would have to check in on Mass DOT for the signage, because obviously they need to get signage up on 138.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tom. I believe you're going to come up shortly again on another item. Do we want to skip right to F?
I'm okay with that. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention? The ayes have it.
Does that mean we're not going to talk about that one, or you're just going to revert back later?
We're going to revert back later to the
Got it. Thank you.
item that we missed. So there's a request by Highway Superintendent, Mr. Ferry, to have 2 vehicles become surplus property, to be declared surplus. A 1986 Chevrolet Model D30 one-ton pickup and a 1988 Oshkosh Model WT2206 sander and plow. Can you just, Mr. Ferry, enlighten me or enlighten us as to why these are being put to for surplus? Are they not workable now, or have they been replaced?
Yes, the pickup truck was replaced with a previous town meeting. That pickup truck was actually part of the police department's inventory. Just a point of order there. It's not really our vehicle. We borrowed it when we were short. Rail. I don't think you want to invest money into that
No.
type of repair on that one.
Okay. I will entertain a motion then.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? The ayes have it. Can we now go back to, does that take care of you, Mr. Ferry? I think.
I think so. I asked Mallory a question. I don't know if she caught it.
Oh, I'm sorry. My children were giving me hugs tonight. I'm sorry. I think they like this. I'm sorry, what was your question?
Ken asked if there's anything from me. I asked you a question by email
Oh,
about the community announcements, or is that going to be another time? Or
I didn't see your email and I apologize. Here it is. Sure. If you have an update, I think people would be interested to hear that.
Yeah, it's not as the superintendent though, it's from the Lions Club.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a very important and big part of our community, the Lions auction and also the Cow Chip Festival. The auction is canceled at this time, be held in a later date, not to be determined later. The Cow Chip is canceled at that date, or postponed should be a better word. We haven't nailed down a date yet. It tentatively, it could be,
So
it tentatively
thought-
could be July 10th through 12th, but we're hoping we can get the dates August 7th through 9th. We will let everyone know, but more importantly, the current dates are not going to work at all.
I thought I saw on Facebook the Cow Chip festival being changed to an August date. Has that already been that date has already been approved, or?
Other things need to fall into place for us to grab that date. We're hoping that falls in our favor and to allow us more time for this virus to pass over.
Sure.
Other than that, the July dates we can grab, but we're hoping we can get the August ones.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you for that, for letting the town know.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question on 8H, discuss stipend and job duties for pest control. Isn't Mr. Ferry the, what's your
Is it
title,
pest?
Mr. Ferry?
Pest.
Inspector of Pest Control. Don't you hold that title?
Yes.
So is that what this is about?
That's on
Or is
there
this
from a
different?
Previous meeting. That was when he had made mention during the budget presentation that we should reconsider it. Because it wasn't on the agenda, you couldn't reconsider it, and so here it is.
So I'll entertain a motion to go to 8H.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Discuss the stipend and job duties for the pest control. Reference budget 294.
Okay.
So, town administrator.
Yes, I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
didn't have my
can you-
budget open, but I'm here.
Yeah, can you enlighten us on this, please?
Yes, budget 294 is the forestry budget. As part of this, which is the tree warden. Mr. Ferry is elected our illustrious tree warden. Underneath in that budget is also the salary for the pest control superintendent. He in his budget presentation last meeting had made mention that perhaps a different employee might be better suited for this, and that due to the inability to be paid twice for two different appointed positions, he has not been taking this stipend. So we could either reassign the job or remove the stipend. That is my recollection. If Mr. Ferry, if I am incorrect, please do correct.
Yes, that's correct. It rarely gets any calls on it. The town needs to have somebody to receive a call if a need comes up in town. I don't mind keeping it, but you cannot pay me. There's some laws that prevent that. It's also an opportunity for someone else to take on a hat in town too. So that's just something for you guys to consider.
What is the stipend? How much is it?
100, the request had a 2% increase. It's $199.36 a year.
I can't hear you.
$199.36, Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
with a 2% increase from last year.
What was the change? $199 and how much?
36 cents.
Do you have, Mr. Ferry, do you have somebody in mind for this position?
No, I do not.
Okay.
So,
Can I? Oh, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Mr. Ferry,
No.
Mr. Ferry, so give us your recommendation on the best way to handle this.
It sounds like what Mr. Ferry's saying is there's not, it rarely gets calls. He'll still take the call, but he's not going to accept or cannot accept the compensation. Correct, Mr.
Right,
Ferry?
I will not accept the compensation. You have a little window here before you do the appointments. So if no one comes up, then I'll continue on, and that could be something that could be easily filled for someone, get their foot in the door and get involved in the town very easily.
So you're willing to finish out the rest of at least this year's appointment?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Tall task.
Okay.
So in the event that it is filled by somebody else, I mean, originally I came into this thinking that we would zero out that line, but in the event that it would be filled by somebody else, maybe we keep it there.
I was thinking, well, he's going to finish up this fiscal year. Okay, I actually see both points, but I guess first of all, this is $199, so I feel like no matter which way we go, we're going to come out on top here. But my point would be, I'm willing to honor Mr. Ferry's request because he's going to answer the call. He has the expertise if something happens, and I don't foresee some sort of influx of tropical insects from, South America, so I don't foresee him getting bogged down. If we take away the line item for the money, or reduce it to zero rather, and keep that him, answering that call, I guess, without the title.
I think since he's agreed to finish out his term of appointment, if he notifies the town prior to us making the next appointments that he chooses not to serve, then we will seek someone to fill the position. If he indicates he is willing to be reappointed, then when we make that appointment, we will state that he will serve without compensation for this position.
So do we even need a motion then on this?
I don't think so,
I don't think
because
so.
we're not at the appointment stage.
Mr.
That
Ferry,
sounds like
thanks
a
for your
consensus.
thanks for your input on this, Mr. Ferry. Thank you.
Mr. Ferry, thank you for remotely participating.
You're welcome. Mallory's trying to say something. Hang on.
Tom is like my translator. I like. If you want to, you can take the time to vote on this budget now, since we're talking about it. It's open. It is on the agenda later on a budget review, or you can just wait.
I think, do we just want to vote now? So I wouldn't want him to feel compelled to stick around if we have a consensus.
Yeah, no, I'm okay on voting on, we'll have to take it out of order. Number 9, review budgets, 294 forestry.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. Is there a motion to, what do we need to do on this then, if we're going to keep it the same?
You wanted to recommend it to the finance committee.
As is, right?
As is.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion that we recommend to the Finance Committee Department Budget Account 294 Forestry as is, as presented this evening.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Now, can we go back to new business, item number D, under 8? Close the annual town meeting warrant, open special town meeting warrant, and set closing for the special town meeting warrant.
If you're looking for items to skip down to a different meeting agenda, this is one of them. However, I would ask that you still open the special town meeting warrant with a closing date of May 20th.
Are you accepting motions, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I am.
I'm going to, so moved on the town administrator's comment regarding the special town meeting warrant opening and closing date.
So I'll second it. So the opening date is tonight,
Yes, ma'am. Yep,
and it will close on May,
20th.
so I can't hear you.
20th, May 20th.
Okay.
Mrs. Goulart, did you second that?
Yes, I did.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Do we want to close the annual town meeting warrant?
You already voted to actually do that. You had set the closing date a while ago. I left it on here in the event you wanted to keep it open. My recommendation is that you keep it as is, because we don't need more spending articles this year.
I do want to ask a question about that, though. Selectman Goulart, though, chimed in first. Selectman Goulart, did you have a point or a question?
Yes, Mr. Ferry and I again, this is iffy. We would like to add, I know we set the closing date for the annual. We would like to add a motion to accept Miller's Lane as it's currently laid out. Now, Attorney Costa is working on this, and if he's working on the order of taking, which we will vote, but also an article for the town meeting warrant to accept Miller's Lane as it's currently laid out. So if we put this on the warrant, if he gets it done in time, we can vote on it. If he doesn't get it done in time, we'll just table it at the town meeting. But I'm hoping he's going to get this done.
Can I ask a question
Yes.
about that, Selectman Goulart? So do you think we can, I mean, do you think we can get that article in by the current deadline? Or do you think, given that we're moving the annual town meeting back about 15 days, do you think extra time is needed, an extra week? I mean, what are you thinking?
What I'm asking for is insert the article, these things go at the end of the warrant anyhow. So insert the article to accept Miller's Lane as laid out and as described in the warrant. And then, at town meeting, if it's there, we don't read all of that meets and bounds and stuff. We just say, motion to accept Miller's Lane as referenced in the town meeting warrant. Matt has all of the information because it's been provided by Roy Delano when he laid out the whole thing. So it's just a matter of him putting together a warrant article that we can get passed.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Selectman Goulart.
Selectman Goulart had made mention of that.
I did not
Madam
hear-
Administrator, is there a way that you can, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I feel like we all have the same issue right now. Is there a way you could gently boost up the internal volume on your microphone, please?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I feel like you don't want to capture the kiddos in the room, but it's very hard to hear you.
And also, I think I'm trying to be quiet. Like, I think it's bedtime, and I think just instinctively it's dark out, so I need to be quiet. I'm sorry. So I apologize if that's been going on the entire meeting. I'm sorry. The Selectman Goulart had reached out to Mrs. Brady today, and she did tell her or ask her to put in a placeholder and indicate that she was going to do this. So we have done that. We also, Mr. Ferry did the same thing. So his street sweeper that was a carryover from last town meeting has made its way there. And the animal control officer has actually taken her article out. So this sort of works out well that we can provide you in the next meeting an updated warrant article, and you'll have a placeholder there, Miller's Lane street acceptance. And then when that's all set, we'll hold the public hearing with the planning board. And so the public will have time to weigh in on it. So we are aware of it, and we'll make sure it makes its way there.
Thank you very much.
So, Madam Administrator, we all have a copy of the proposed draft of the warrants for the June 15th meeting.
Yeah.
We're not actually going to go over those warrants tonight, though.
No, sir.
State our recommendations okay, fine.
No, this was really just to let you know what had been submitted, and I like the idea we have more time now because that will come at a later date as we get closer to town meeting, and then it allows us to refine them, and they'll go under legal review as well. So our schedule has just been elongated a bit.
So,
Thank you, everyone.
yeah, so we've already voted to close the warrants tonight, so we don't have to take any further vote. Is that correct?
We
Correct.
like that. Correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so the next item.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Yes, Mrs. Goulart.
Just a question. So is Mrs. Aaronstein saying strike Article 34 and insert just reference to Miller's Lane, acceptance of Miller's Lane?
I'm not sure about the article number.
Okay, this one says to see if the town will vote to amend Town of Dayton zoning bylaw definitions by deleting the existing kennel, commercial definition, so forth and so on. And it's all about kennels.
That is staying. That is a initiative from the planning board that came before town meeting previously, and then they've revised it. The animal control officer article, I apologize, was a spending article for about $1,600. Not huge, but she doesn't need it anymore.
Okay,
So she's taken that off. And
okay.
Mrs. Brady is pretty quick, so she may have already taken that off and provided you with the most up-to-date copy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So the next item, which is to review the warrant articles, we're not doing that tonight. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So the next item of the new business is G, vote to declare and surplus and dispose of Dayton TV 9 surplus items. We've been provided a list of those items. Does anybody have any questions on these? Anybody hear me?
Yeah, I heard you. I don't have any questions.
No questions. I heard you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion then.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion. I motion that we approve the list of the cable committee's surplus items as prepared this evening.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Proclamation.
May I request actually before you get into that, that you take item 8N as in Nancy out of order?
Yes. Discussion of the appointment of Mark Marino as harbor master. Is Mr. Marino still here?
I'm going to second that, Mr. Chairman.
Is he still here, Mr. Marino?
Yes.
Yes. So first, is there a motion?
Yes, I made the motion.
I seconded, Mr. Chairman.
Discussion? Mr. Marino, could you enlighten us on this, please?
We got to vote. Can Mr. Pacheco call the vote?
On moving the item out of order, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, okay, yes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Now, Mr. Marino.
Thank you. I'd like to have my son, Mark, help out the Office of the Harbor Master. Mark is a student at Mass Maritime Academy. An incredible amount of knowledge and technical background in the maritime community. And there's a lot of things that Mark can do for the Harbor Master's office that are really quick decision stuff like, hey, we need someone to run out now. We can do that. Or we need someone to go with Alex or me. He's right there, operating the boat, handling lines, handling chain, handling buoys. He's got it all. He just completed over 8,000 miles on a 600-foot freighter this past winter, 1,000 last year. He crossed he went through the Panama Canal. He went across the equator. He's a shellback now. So what he can offer our office is just a tremendous amount of knowledge, both from the neck up and from the neck down. And it's just quick. Hey, we need someone right now. Can you available? Yep, let's go. And it's that type of thing.
May I ask Mr. Marino a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So first of all, I'm really happy to hear that this is your recommendation as harbor master. I know just in following and being fortunate enough to follow your family's adventures that your children have basically grown up on boats, and so I feel very comfortable as a selectman to approve this. But I do have one question, and my question is on our agenda tonight. It says to appoint Hank Marino, and I know Mark as Mark. Is Mark's real name Hank? Like what? Was that a typo? I was a little confused.
I think that was a typo.
Okay.
Well, we apologize. I don't know where Hank came from. I'll forever probably miscall him Hank, and for that I apologize.
That's okay.
It was a typo from our end.
Yeah.
Your son has a very impressive resume, I have to say.
Thank you.
So I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, before we do that,
Yes.
Ron, I question the name Hank too, so you. But just to make sure there is no future concerns. Mark is your son. You've stated publicly you're recommending him. Have you filed the proper paperwork with the town clerk so there is no conflict of interest?
I have not as of this moment. I was not aware of any particular paperwork until just now. So
Okay, so the fact that you have stated this is your son, that's a public statement. It's very important that you can go online and get the form and fill it out and file it with the town clerk so that there is no conflict of interest. That's why I again asked for you to state publicly he is your son.
What is the name of the form
Yes.
that I would be
I
looking
can
for?
find it.
Mr. Harbor Master,
Yeah.
it's, I was gonna actually chime in, I apologize. It's an appearance of conflict, a disclosure, excuse me,
Okay,
of an appearance of conflict of interest form. And they do, I believe, have them on file, like printed ones in the town clerk's office. So you can do that there.
I
But
can
that is a
send you
good
a
point,
link.
Selectman Goulart.
thank you very much. I will take care of that and submit that tomorrow, once I receive the link from Mallory. And as far as I know, that's the only thing I have to do. Is there anything else?
No, that's all you have to do.
I
Great.
don't have anything for Mr. Marino, but just a point.
Yes.
I know that there's a need, and Mr. Marino did talk to me about this, so we've talked about various different things, but the town is currently under a spending freeze. Yes, we need a harbor master, so I just want the board to, I guess, remember that we're under that and make the decision on whether or not he would be in paid status or not,
Well,
and consider it.
Mhm.
I just want to bring the point up.
No, that's a good point. I think I could be mistaken, but we've always had a harbor master and 2 assistants. And my understanding is that Mark Marino would be replacing one of those 2 assistants, right? Like, how, was that the intention? I thought was
We had 3 assistants, but I think
3
Mallory,
assistants, excuse me.
but I'm not sure if you do it that way.
Mhm.
Mallory, is this, does it have to be posted if we make him an assistant? We had discussed possibly having him as an intern.
Correct.
I'm sorry, I may have misspoke. My understanding was that this position was meant to fill the prior vacancy, which I believe was an assistant harbor master. So that's not bad.
It is in right now because of the coronavirus restrictions that we're under, but it was never the expectation to have me propose Mark become one of our assistant harbor masters. He's available, he's home. You know, I don't have to do the social distancing with him, and we still have on-water stuff that we have to do now. So
Would that be more helpful though, Harbor Master Marino? Like what role do you see it? And then I guess maybe the board can decide if this is something that, you know, should be paid or.
Well, he'll basically be doing everything that an assistant harbor master does. And in my professional opinion, he is more than competent to handle all of that. You know, if it makes sense to appoint him as an assistant, great. If it, you know, I don't want to muddy the waters and create an issue. I just want to make sure we do this above board, follow all the proper procedures. And that's about it.
And I think aside from it not being posted, but you make good points about an immediate need, the social distancing, it's the same household. So you sort of meet that.
Yeah. I also wanted to mention just very briefly is I suspect if we're all under these social distancing measures that this summer is going to be extra busy on the water. That's just what I'm thinking. So I think we should keep that in mind as well. Like I said, I was always operating under the guise that this was the vacancy that we were filling. That was already something that was there. So
well, I haven't found anybody, and I've been looking. And if I had the support of the select board, I would love to make him an assistant. But I'm not sure if you know, if now is the time to do that or what.
Well, I was just pointing out that it was something that was already, as I understand, budgeted for. So this isn't creating a new position that has a new stipend. This is something that was already existing with monies that were already there.
Well, we do have a vacancy because Elliot Burrows had to resign because of medical reasons. So we have the 3rd slot. We have the funding in place for that. We just don't have the body.
Correct.
Okay, so that was my question, whether or not we still had the funding in there
Yeah.
for this position. So if the funding's in there, this isn't additional money that we're seeking.
Correct.
I'm okay with the appointing him as the assistant harbor master.
And I just wanted, I keep belaboring the point, but the way that it's written on the agenda, Mr. Chairman, is harbor master. And I was always operating under the guise that this was the assistant, and that was just a typo.
I believe it is. Is that correct, Ron?
If
Still remain the
Yes.
I left
still
it,
the harbor master.
I left it intentionally vague.
Wise, very wise.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Mrs.
Um,
Gulart.
first of all, the harbor master falls under public safety, so there's no question at all in my mind about filling this vacancy under this coronavirus thing. It's public safety. There is a vacancy. This appointment is only going to run through the end of, or when will we make our next appointments? So I am willing to make a motion to appoint Mark Marino, Assistant Harbor Master, for the balance of this year or until we make appointments for the upcoming year. And he would be paid with existing funds.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, the ayes have it. Can you
And
hear me?
We can hear you, Mr. Chairman, but I
Okay.
did want to say to Mr. Marino before you log off, this is a very valuable lesson we learned tonight, that sometimes you need to look no further than in your own household to have the expertise to fill an important vacancy. So thank you. And hi, Mark,
Thank you.
or Hank.
This is Mark.
Mark, AKA Hank. Sorry about that.
Nice to meet you, Mark.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you, Ron.
Okay, going back to under new business. Boy, this has been a long meeting.
Well, the good news is you don't have any pressure on the budgets anymore. Oh, no. wait,
yeah,
Austin.
that's a good point.
Oh, no. Wait, Ken.
You going no?
There we
Now
go. No, I couldn't hear you.
We
I
couldn't,
couldn't
it
hear
was
you.
the audio, Mr. Chairman.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
This is a proclamation and certificate of recognition. Whereas Private Frederick Charles Anderson, born in Boston, Massachusetts on March 24th, 1842, was orphaned by the age of 8 and lived in a workhouse in South Boston called the House of Industry. And whereas Private Frederick Charles Anderson was taken at age 14 by the Orphan Train, a controversial welfare program that transported orphans, homeless and abandoned children out of the cities into rural areas, where he was selected by Rainham farmer Stillman Wilbur and put to work on the farm. And whereas Private Frederick Charles Anderson left the farm to enlist in the Union Army at age 19, joining Company A of the 18th Regiment, Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry, which participated in the Second Battle of Bull Run, the Battle of Antietam,
Antietam.
the Battle of Fredericksburg, the Battle of Chancellorsville, the Battle of Gettysburg, and the fateful Siege of Petersburg, and the Battle of Globe Tavern. And whereas Private Frederick Charles Anderson valiantly and in close combat captured the flag of the 27th South Carolina Infantry Regiment and its flag bearer during the Battle of Globe Tavern, effectively suspending their ability to communicate with the rest of the Confederate Army and turning the battle in the favor of the Union Army by retaking the Weldon Railroad. And whereas Private Frederick Charles Anderson was recognized for this brave act on September 13, 1864, by General George Meade, commander of the Army of the Potomac, where he was awarded a Medal of Honor during the first ever presentation of such a medal for conspicuous gallantry and good conduct, displayed in capturing on the field of battle flags from the enemy. And whereas Private Frederick Charles Anderson continued military service until discharge on June 29, 1865, that after which he began a family, settled in Somerset until his sudden death at age 40 of apoplexy, and was laid to rest in the Dayton Community Church Cemetery. And whereas Private Frederick Charles Anderson is a decorated Civil War hero and one of the first ever Medal of Honor recipients whose family has generously donated his medal to the town of Dayton to preserve Private Anderson's patriotism and dedication to his country, and tell of his integral role in the Civil War, an important place in history. And now, we, the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Dayton, do hereby recognize the historical significance and value of Private Frederick Charles Anderson, and do hereby proclaim the Town of Dayton as a Medal of Honor community in reference to him. In witness whereof, we have hereunto set our hands and caused the Great Seal of the Town of Dayton to be affixed this 8th day of April 2020 by the Board of Selectmen. Were you able to hear me?
Yes.
In total.
That's great. I'll entertain a motion then that we
Yes.
approve this. Yes.
No,
Dr. P.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I was just gonna motion that we approve the proclamation declaring Town of Dayton a Medal Honor community and approve the proclamation as prepared this evening.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Item number J on the new business, appoint Brian Eckerson as a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals. We just received a letter from the chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals, Zach Karen, recommending that Mr. Eckerson be appointed to the Zoning Board of Appeals. He was also interviewed by the vice chair, Greg Logan, and that's their recommendation,
Fabulous.
as well as the Zoning Board of Appeals recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna hope that we honor that recommendation. I'm gonna motion that we appoint Ryan Eckerson to the Zoning Board of Appeals as a regular member.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, the ayes have it.
Was this a vacancy for very long?
For a few months, I believe.
This was Mr. Quinn's, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
When he was elected to the Water District, and
Yes.
I think later he resigned. Of course.
Okay, all right.
Busy.
So the next agenda item is to appoint Robert Woods as the Serpent Commission member. I believe he is the current member. And this is a reappointment. This is a recommendation of the planning board that he be appointed to the to Serpent.
So moved.
I'm gonna second that.
Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, definitely, Mr. Woods and I have not always agreed politically, but I definitely respect the fact that he volunteers his time, and he, I think that's something I can get behind. So I appreciate him stepping up for this Serpent commissionship, which is in addition to his regular role as a planning board member. So kudos.
In my understanding, because he is also presently the representation for the planning board for Serpent, he's doing an excellent job. So I support the motion. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Woods.
Discussion of vacation carryover to fiscal year 2020,
21.
2021. 2021.
So this is on here. I'm sorry. I'm going to take this because Ken is frozen. The current state of affairs has us that we're unable to, unfortunately, use or allow our employees to use vacation time. Ken, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Good. So this kind of request has come up to give our employees some flexibility that we could allow them. Generally, they're allowed to transfer over about 2 weeks of vacation time from one fiscal year to another under normal circumstances per their union contracts, respective union contracts. And where this is not normal circumstances, I'm bringing this request to the board that employees be allowed to transfer their vacation time over into FY21 with the caveat that they must use it within the time frame of FY21. So June 30th, 2021. Yep. They would have to use it or lose it.
I'll entertain a motion on this, please.
So how much time are we talking about?
People have varying time right now, but with our declaration of emergency, most first responders aren't really allowed to take extensive time. A lot of the April vacations have been canceled, even though.
Not only that, it's not safe to travel.
So,
So I don't have a problem carrying it over and requiring them to use it. However, this is an earned benefit, and you can't deny somebody paid vacation that they earn, so I would not include that in the motion. I'm wondering if there should also be something in the motion that the department head would have to weigh in, because obviously we're gonna have a lot of people carrying over vacation. So it's gotta be based on the operational needs of the department. So the department head would have to have some say.
When they use it, like when they're asking to use it?
Yes,
Yeah.
scheduling vacation time.
Well, that's already the current situation, right? That they have to get permission from the department head. when
Right.
taking
This is
vacation.
just a vote to, so right now, everyone essentially gets 2 weeks by right. But some people, a lot of us, have more than 2 weeks to carry over and are not going to use it because, as Selectman Goulart said, it's unsafe. You have to then quarantine yourself for 14 days after you return. So then you're technically out for 3 weeks if you take a week's vacation. So this is just an ability to carry over more than the allotted 2 weeks. And if we do tell them up front that it quote unquote expires, then it loses that. You are allowed to do it as long as you give them, the employer is allowed to provide an expiration date as long as you tell them that up front.
So I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we allow employees to carry over unused vacation time from FY20 into FY21 in excess of the usual 2 weeks that we allow them to carry over based on the department's operational needs.
Is there a second?
I'm going to second that.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
May I receive clarification about whether or not this carried over time? I hate using the word expire, but they have to use it by June 30th, 2021, or was that not?
Without getting into specific cases, I can tell you we had a ruling back in 2000 and somewhere, I'm going to guess 2009 or 2010. Actually, it was 2008 when the state didn't send us the $83,000 and change that we expected for state aid. And we had to make drastic cuts and stop spending money to be able to balance the budget. And there was vacation involved for a few employees. And the ruling we got was vacation is earned benefited time. You either pay them for it or you allow them to take it. And we said, we don't have the money to pay all of it. And they said, then it can be a split deal. They must take a certain amount this fiscal year and you allow them to carry the extra into the next one. So I just don't want to get into that situation again.
Does that answer your question?
I was going to request if I could just get some legal opinions about that and then come back to you about an expiration, because if they can just carry this over, they'll have weeks and weeks and weeks. It'll just compound. So I don't want to avoid, people with
Can I ask?
What
Maybe
we-
I missed something.
What we were allowed,
Nope, I'm sorry, Selectman Goulart. You go. I'm sorry.
what we were allowed to say was, we could not say we will not pay you for it, you'll lose it. But we were allowed to say, and what happened was, you must use X days, and each person was told what their X was. You must use X days before June 30th. And you will be allowed to carry over whatever the balance was. Obviously, we weren't dealing with a pandemic, and it was more a situation of couldn't take the time because of work and all this other stuff. There may be something different that comes down the pike relative to fringe benefits, And if it's not here yet, it's something that needs to be looked at. The other thing we had said also was, we don't want any employees to lose any kind of benefits. That's why we're continuing to pay everybody, not affecting sick leave and vacation time. The only time that we know of that is absolutely positively mandatory is personal time. So I certainly am not opposed to getting the latest ruling, and we can put that particular item on a next agenda. But I think at least this way, we can at least get this much done.
Right.
Can I ask, I have a point of clarification, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Maybe I missed this, and I really honestly apologize. When we're talking about a time limit right now, when these this carried over time has to be used. I guess my question would be, if we're carrying over the time from, so first of all, let me take a step back. So in my private industry that I work in, when you carry over time, which my employer does allow, that carried over time does have to be used within, I think, 3 or 4 months into the next year. I guess my question here is, if we're talking about this time limit on this unused time now, isn't the time limit, if we don't set one explicitly, the end of that fiscal year? So the end of fiscal year 2021, if we don't specifically set a date, that carried over time has to be used? And again, I'm not giving my opinion. I'm just asking for a point of clarification based on a potential motion or the motion that was
I
on.
don't believe there would be any auto default to just kicking it to the next fiscal year. That's why I want to get some clarification from either the board or get some counsel and bring it back, as Selectman Goulart has suggested, and I'm very comfortable doing that. My take on it is, yes, it's an earned benefit. We provide it with a caveat that through these union contracts, you are only allowed to carry over up to 2 weeks. So if you don't use your vacation time, and of course I wasn't privy to any of that history that Selectman Goulart had. I wasn't here, I mean, that's what I mean by that. So we provide vacation as a benefit. We give the terms upfront to how you earn it, and that there's a time limit on it. And then if you don't get to use all your time for whatever reason, by right, you're allowed to move up to 2 weeks into the next fiscal year. This is certainly a special condition, but I'll try to call the DLR and see if maybe another town has asked that question about whether or not there's anything. But I feel comfortable that we can provide a time limit, but I'm also very comfortable getting more information and providing it again. So we're ahead of the game month-wise. So.
And just to add on to what Dr. Z said, yes, you're absolutely right. Fiscal year means fiscal year. And what Mrs. Aaronstein, or what this motion really is, we're allowing them to carry over an amount in excess of 2 weeks. We don't know what that amount is, but at least we've taken the first step. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure we're not the only community. So my guess is we're going to see some kind of guidance, ruling or something, talking about how communities have got to handle this, because we're all in the same boat.
Yep. And thank you, everyone, for answering that for me.
So, Madam Administrator, you're okay with us voting on the current motion, and we'll get more clarification for the next
right, with the understanding that next meeting I'll have some hopefully legal guidance, but at the very least DLR guidance.
Any further discussion on this motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. M, vote on request to transfer sick time for police union employee.
The police union has a member who was out extensively for unrelated to work, and he exhausted his sick time. They requested that they be able to donate their sick time to that individual. Meanwhile, because we had to cancel our last meeting and we met tonight, and he's since returned to work, but I advise that they should probably keep the request going, because if something happens to him, especially now with what might develop as a complication of his previous stuff or with anything else, he should be able to have a sick leave stockpile, I guess, to draw on, if the original intent was to do that. So it's before you still, regardless of him returning.
Mr. Chairman, I will
Yes.
make a motion that we approve the request of Local 306 that members of the police department be allowed to donate up to a total of 14 days to Patrolman Barros for sick leave use.
I'm going to second that, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's review the budgets.
So I don't know if you heard me say there's not really a pressure for you to do this now since we've officially kicked back town meeting. However, that being said, the Finance Committee is scheduled to start their review on April 14th, not going with specific budgets, but their overview, their first meeting. That'll be a Zoom meeting and we can link you in so you can be a part of that. My thought was if you wanted to just that top chunk on the agenda, you've already you haven't recommended these, but you've prepared them. Back in your meeting, January 22nd, I believe it was, you voted to submit your department requests. And those are the figures that are in your budget books for those particular budgets. You've already done forestry, obviously. I have a comment on the workers' comp based upon discussions with the accountant. But other than that, everything is level funded or lower in that block. So if you only wanted to handle that block and then save the rest for our next meeting, it doesn't do any damage to us on our schedule.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
I totally agree with everything you're saying, Madam Administrator. My thought is we're all pretty comfortable right now. Yes, the meeting has gone 2.5 hours already. But if we want to get some of this budget work done, I'm happy to do that. So that's my thought on this. I also want to say Finance Committee is going to meet on the 14th, and they're going to proceed with their work. So I would like us to get as much done as we possibly can, because even though our work and our recommendations are independent of the Finance Committee, you know, we all talk and we're all going to go, you know, be part of their meetings in some way and be part of that discussion. And I would like us to try, if we can, everyone's schedule permitting, to get as much done as we possibly can. That's just my opinion.
Well, are you going to give me time to put my pajamas on?
Yes. You can call a recess, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, we don't want that on public television.
No, he's gonna stop his video, I'm assuming.
You're correct, Dr. C. So at least let's review the budget items that are before us then. So,
and I wasn't saying, Mr. Chairman, that we have to come to a consensus. If there's something that we need more
Sure.
information, let's continue it. But let's try to. We've already put some of these off from the last meeting, so that's just my opinion.
Okay, so why don't we start with budget number 122, the Board of Selectmen?
So I will just say that the only request here that has been voted on already is the line 5343. You had previously voted that on February 19th. And the item is the amount of, I'm sorry.
Yes. Hello?
I can hear you.
Good. So you're correct. We voted on 5343, but we haven't voted on the whole budget.
Right.
Is there any concern about that budget? Does anybody have any questions about it? If not, I'll entertain a motion to recommend that this budget be approved and recommended to the Finance Committee.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I think he put up his, I'll call it a screensaver.
Yeah.
Maybe he stepped away.
I'm going to step down and second it. You think maybe he's putting his pajamas on? Mrs. Goulart, are you comfortable with us taking a vote on this now?
Yeah, I thought you were gonna ask me about pajamas.
No, no.
Yeah, you seconded, I will, yeah.
Second him. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
I,
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes.
Oh, look at that, back in time for the
No.
vote.
I apologize. So my desk is really small, so I had to go rummage for this document holder so I can actually see the budget items as I vote. So my apologies on that.
We just voted on the Board of Selectmen's budget, and we are recommending that to the Finance Committee. So the next budget is 151, Town Council.
This is a level funded budget from from the FY20 fiscal year.
move to approve and forward to the Finance Committee.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The next item is data processing, 155.
This overall goes down because we saved some money with our new vendor. It's in okay shape as far as how much we've expended for this fiscal year, but we did run into some snags. Certainly, he worked through this pandemic for VPNs, but was able to manage it. I think it's okay if you wanted to add to it, that's appropriate, but I think we'd be fine going forward with how it is presented tonight.
Motion to approve and send to the Finance Committee.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. The next item is 192, budget item is 192, public buildings.
I have notes on this one. We removed $1,000 that was listed as animal shelter.
What was that, Madam Administrator?
I'm sorry, I'm like, the way I'm doing this is not good.
Yeah, it's difficult to have the documents up with yeah.
And I'm on like a bed. I've spread out so I can have all my stuff handy. I have a note here that we removed $1,000 for the animal shelter. And I'm just a little nervous about that, where she does now have a new building. Are we removing that line because she has her own budget and anything she would need would be part of that? And then any other, because it's a facility, it would be covered under facilities anyway? I just want to make sure that happens before we move forward.
I think that's what we said.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think
thank you.
that was the understanding, but I do also share your concern with, you know, and I've said this publicly, so I'm not going to go into it. I'll spare you, Mr. Chairman, about, you know, protecting your investment, and we were lucky to get that grant money. So, but I think we were operating under the guise that you're speaking of, Madam Administrator.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Motion to approve and send on to the Finance Committee.
Have a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. 193, building insurance.
I don't have final figures from the insurance company, but I am still confident in what was presented back in January, which is a $5,000 reduction in this line.
I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve, a second.
Any discussion?
We love reductions, so thank you, Madam Administrator.
I can provide one.
Right.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
One question,
Yes,
Mrs. Aaronstein. You had showed me a memo the other day about a listing of credits. That's the savings this year or going into the new year?
Savings for current year, and that is because of, I have that on my desk or on my table in the office if you want to take a look at it again. But it is the kind of the changes of, oh my gosh, the highway barn. It's not a barn. What is it? The shed.
Garage.
The old police station's converted.
Yes.
So it originally was vacant and now it's not vacant anymore. So we get a reduction because it's more money for vacant insurance. Same thing with adding the animal shelter. So things changed and it falled out as it came together as a net benefit to the town, an overall reduction. School Street, the VFW came off the rolls this year, also under vacant insurance. So that came off. So there were some changes. And I think they also had vehicle changes listed in that.
Yes, they did.
So it was the combination.
So these are both savings this year and will be reflected in the upcoming year because we saved it this year and it'll carry forward.
I just updated the March figures, and it was 14, without that credit, there was a $14,000 savings.
Okay.
So it was good to shop around.
Okay, next budget item is 244, weights and measures.
Move to okay and forward to the FinCom.
Is there a second?
I don't know. I'm going to second that.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. 912, workers' comp.
So this one, I am asking for an increase. As you are aware, we just recently had to do a finance committee reserve transfer because after our audit was conducted for workers' comp, our payroll was off a little bit, so we ended up owing. I had previously submitted a request to you to level fund this. And sorry about that.
No worries. We knew that was an unfinished thought. Nobody even interrupted.
I just want to go, I'm going to just get my budget up real quickly to get the accurate figure. The town accountant had suggested that we increase this budget to at least cover what our actual costs were for this year, which is 56,000 and change. So I'm just trying to get the actual amount.
Yeah.
But I may ask you for 57 if I can't.
I guess that actually makes a lot of sense to me because I didn't know if I was looking at this incorrectly, but I'm looking at this and it looks like, 95 or 96% of it is being expended. So it, to me, intuitively makes sense to have somewhat of an increase if you're using 96% of something halfway through the fiscal year.
Correct. So we have updated that request to reflect our actual cost, and I've highlighted it there on my screen share, 57,804.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Motion to approve $57,804 for workers' comp and recommend to the finance committee.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. 920, tuition. This is level funding, I believe.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm coming back.
Yeah,
How
that's
do I exit this? Okay. Here we go.
I will entertain a motion.
May I just make a comment?
Sure.
We do have 2 employees that have put in requests to utilize this, so that's why it's increased from 2,000. Oh no, it's level funded at 4,000 because they do have the both. If we have some financial troubles, this is a program I was considering. I don't know I just basically want you to know that that's what my thought process is. And as the finance committee meets, you may revise your vote. But this is somewhere that I was considering suspending the program until we have a better economic outlook. But
yeah, I actually
to think about.
I get why I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to make a comment about that.
Sure.
I totally 100% understand why you would make that recommendation because that's the, quote unquote, responsible thing to do. So I'm with you there. I actually am going to disagree with you on this because what I would think is something like this in a difficult economic situation would be good because what you're doing is you're getting help for college kids and younger kids who in a tough economic climate like this may be out of a job or may not have access to get a job for their level of skills at that point in their life and in their career. And I think that it would be wise for the $4,000 to keep this with the understanding that you may be getting, especially with college, a lot of it online and or suspended right now, you might actually be getting more help for the departments through this program in a difficult economic system. So kind of more bang for your buck in that respect. That I could be wrong, but that was my thought process on that.
So Madam Administrator, you want us to vote on the 4,000, but we may have to take a look at this somewhere down the road, which I'm okay with.
I'm just trying to highlight some
Sure.
areas. And, you know, I think people know me by now. I don't take any of these decisions lightly. And I think about them quite a bit. I like to also be upfront and transparent and let everyone know that we are considering that. Even though we do have a really financial situation, we're healthy, we've had a good string of that. So I don't want people to worry, but we do have to just look at that.
Yeah, I don't want to make it like I'm saying $4,000 to this program or $4,000 from the Board of Health in a pandemic. Like, I understand what the priorities are completely, but I do see the value also in a difficult economic system in terms of benefiting an important department like them, because I know they've also benefited from the program too.
Thank you.
Didn't this start out as 2,000 and during the year we had to add money to it or something?
Yeah, well, I have on my notes, there's 2 employees using it, or before it was just 1. And so I think we made a collective decision to increase it. When that came along, I can't remember, but I remember having the conversation.
Well, I think it was because there was a second person and we wanted to support employees doing this. So I'll make a motion that we approve the 4,000 and recommend this to the Finance Committee.
There was a second?
Yeah, I'm going to second that, but I wanted to say under discussion that I apologized. I had confused this with the internship program, and that's why I had made those statements about help. So I apologize. Yes, we should reassess this if the situation calls for that.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Next item is 945 liability insurance.
Oh my
This is a reduction, I believe.
Oh,
We like that.
yep, we like that word. The ears perked up.
And I am comfortable with this.
Mm-hmm.
I do, but big like yellow flag, just a warning. I don't have the figures back from the insurance company yet, but it's a conservative. I'm comfortable with it.
I will entertain.
I make a motion that we approve the liability insurance budget as presented and forward it to the FinCom.
Second.
I didn't hear that.
Second.
Did you hear the motion?
No, I did not.
Okay,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I make a motion that we approve the liability insurance as presented and recommend it to the Finance Committee.
Have a second?
Yep.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Do we want to go to the held budgets? What does the board want to do?
When's our next meeting?
2 weeks, it'd be
Yeah,
April
we're-
22nd.
We're projecting for the regular schedule, and I'm super proud of you guys for doing this.
Is there any chance we could have a budget workshop meeting with just the budget and wrap this whole thing up? I realize that it may come after the first FinCom meeting, but the other thing I did check into, the FinCom meeting on the 14th, at the same time as the DR public hearing on that budget, and it's supposed to be virtual. I'm going to try to attend that DI or sit in virtually on that DI hearing because I'm on the advisory committee. And our advisory committee hasn't been able to meet because our FinCom hasn't met. So I'm hoping to hit the public hearing and then go to the FinCom. So I'm thinking after that meeting, we still got time to work on this and wrap up the rest of the stuff we've got to do. And we'll have some information from hopefully where the DR budget is, because right now we don't have any numbers.
Just a general statement about my schedule, Mr. Chairman. I am working from home right now. So I'm actually able, thankfully right now, to be able to attend meetings on a short notice. So if we want to have a separate budget workshop, to Selectman Goulart's point, if we want to continue this budget to the next regularly scheduled meeting, or if we want to stay here tonight and wrap it up, I'm okay with all three. I know that doesn't help us, so I apologize.
Well, how does the board feel that we continue this to the April 22nd meeting? However, we have an earlier meeting,
Workshop meeting?
earlier that
Oh,
day.
earlier in the, oh, okay. The only thing I'm seeing on my calendar, besides Board of Selectmen, is that's supposed to be a ZBA regular meeting. Now, I assume that's going to get canceled, but my concern is if by any chance it's held at Strawberry Fields, and we're still, when I say we're, Stormwater Committee is trying to still work with, to come up with recommendations and stuff. So again, it's one of those iffy things, you know. I'm the 15th as a special workshop, starting early on the 22nd. Either way is okay with me.
This might be a dumb question.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
It's gonna get real close. This might be a dumb question. Is it possible to do it during the day? Because that gives me a ton of flexibility. I don't know about you, Selectman Zagrafis, about holding just the budget workshop, and then we can, I don't know if that's helpful.
That's fine
It might
with
not be
me.
helpful.
Hold on. So just so I don't miss anything, I'm sorry. It's tough to via Zoom.
We're like all super close. I apologize. to the public.
No, I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. So your suggestion is having a budget workshop during the day.
Right, and then we can,
My opinion is, and I know yeah, that would be easier. Absolutely, I will agree. My only concern is people wouldn't be able, and I'm not saying anyone will actually ever attend a budget workshop, no matter what time it is, no matter if it's super convenient or not convenient. But I want to have budget meetings be as accessible as possible. And so my concern having a budget workshop during the day would be there are people working from home, or there are people who are tending to their children or helping homeschool their children who wouldn't be able to attend that. And then we get charged with, you know, the fact that we didn't have, or we didn't want public to attend our meeting. We all know that's not true, but you know, that would be a criticism that we would get. So I just want us to be mindful of that as well.
Are we expecting, looking at the rest of the budgets on the list, are we expecting representatives from these various departments to, whether they're sitting here in town hall or whether it's virtual, that they would weigh in on their budgets?
so you held a lot of these based upon salaries. With your vote tonight, I can actually edit some of these and provide an updated number, and you can pass them through because you've already made that decision. So you can do that fairly easily. And I can answer tonight. You had a question about the electricity and the sewer budget, and that was the only thing that had come up at your previous review. I spoke with Mrs. Curtis, and she told me that most of their, if you want to talk about that, I'm sorry. If you want to talk about budget 600, I can fill you in on that one.
Okay.
And we can keep doing the ones that are not related to salaries or any other outstanding questions.
Yes, I'd like to know. I saw that. I didn't know what that was about.
Sorry, so you had asked about the electricity line specifically because it had a sizable increase. And Diane, Mrs. Curtis and the Sewer Commission had indicated that over many, many years, it has routinely gone over budget. So they were trying to get it better in line. And I asked her about municipal aggregation. And I said, well, are you aware that the town is getting a lower rate because we have contracted with MMA, and then we're going out to the market again municipally for the residents? And she said, well, most of our services is from TMLP. And my question actually for you, Mrs. Goulart, is I don't think TMLP is bound by our aggregation prices.
No, because it's municipal, but historically, even the people in North Dayton who have TMLP have a lower rate than we have right now. So my thought would be maybe their budgeting in the past has not been accurate, and that's why they're going over. But certainly anything they have that would be within the national grid would fall under the Constellation Energy contract.
So what does the board want to do then? Do they want to have a special meeting, have us continue to the April 22nd meeting, discuss it tonight? I agree with Dr. Z that perhaps, although it would be convenient, but perhaps having the meeting during the day may not be good for the residents of this town. So if we're going to have another meeting, we should pick an evening meeting, I guess.
Well, my only thought was, it doesn't matter to me, day or evening. If it were held during the day and we could all come online or however you're gonna do it, if it could be taped, because then it could be shown.
It'd be like
That
this.
would be my own thought, you know, because I agree that the people in town should hear budget discussions. So that would be our thought, but.
I mean, that is a good point. Like, no matter what, the public can't come to town hall. I mean, I guess maybe I just didn't consider that.
No,
They
it's
can't
good.
show
Your
up at the
default.
building anyway.
Your default is to be in front of the public. That's good. That's a good thing.
Well, my other thought was, in looking at these held budgets up the top here, I see departments that people are actually physically present in this building, maybe only one here and one there, but if they wanted to weigh in on their budgets, we could certainly do it and keep everybody separate. Just like tonight when the town clerk, when I motioned for her to come over here and talk to you, and I stepped aside, we could certainly do that if we knew that it could be taped and shown to the public. That's, you know, just a thought. On that 600 school line,
Can
one
I?
other question
Oh, I'm sorry.
is, has the sewer department provided any information to you relative to, I'm going to talk historically at this point. If they say it keeps going over and over, whatever's been budgeted, then I would question whether or not their budget projections have been accurate, because it doesn't seem to me that people have complained that the rates at TMLP have gone out of sight. They've always been lower even than aggregation. So I'm just wondering what they've based their previous budgets on, and maybe they should have sharpened their pencils and added a little more. That's my only thought.
Can I? I'm sorry. Is someone going to answer that
I
question?
was just
I'm
going to
sorry.
say that my conversation with, I had mentioned to her, oh, are you aware that we have the aggregation? Like maybe that should be factored into your decision. And she had mentioned that some of the pumps are TMLP. I wasn't trying to indicate that they were more. She had also told me that historically they had gone over. We have FY18 and FY19 actual expenditures. Let me pull up where they're at for March.
So we've voted on this budget with the exception of the line 5210, 5211. Is that correct?
Yes,
Correct.
and 5211 is the electricity line
Right.
that we discussed.
And they're talking about, they want an increase of $2,000. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep.
And their current expenditure, they've expended 63% as of March 15th. So
You know,
they're on track to go over. That's my meaning by saying that. That's why I bring that up.
so I'm going to make a motion that we approve the additional money in the electricity line and send this on to the Finance Committee for review. And in the meantime, maybe we can get a little bit, or determine how they come up with a number for the budget. It would seem that obviously the bulk of electricity is to run the pumping stations. And I know we've had some increase in the number of housing units that would feed into that line, but we haven't had a huge development along where there is public sewage. So as I say, I'm willing to make the motion that we approve it and move it on to the Finance Committee, and we'll have more discussion, and maybe we get a little more info on it.
There are a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I did just want to ask about I don't think we finished our discussion regarding the budget workshop. My whole point was I don't want to have a meeting at 1 p.m. We've set a precedent already where we did have a budget workshop meeting that started at 5 p.m. I'm willing to have one at 4 p.m. I just don't want to have one like in the middle of the day at some random time. That's all I meant when I said a day meeting.
What's your feeling on that, Mrs. Goulart?
I'm flexible. Whatever works. Dr. Z is the one that has the work schedule that, he's got timelines and he's got a job. So however we can accommodate him, that's fine. And if we do have a special meeting, we can let those department heads know ahead of time. If you want to come in and talk about your budget, here's your time slot. We're going to make sure everyone stays apart. And if you don't want to come in, that's fine too.
I guess my thought, Mr. Chairman, is we already have held once a budget workshop from 5 to 7. I'm working from home now, so I would be, if we want to do, we're having a meeting, for example, tonight at 6 p.m., one of our regular meetings. If maybe we want to do a budget workshop from 4 to 6 and a regular meeting from 6 to whenever, like, what does everyone think about that?
It's all right with me.
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay, especially we know that these remote meetings are recorded. This Zoom meeting tonight will probably, I'm going to be 100% honest, this recording of the Zoom meeting will probably be better quality in terms of people's ability to hear us than what comes out from the actual in the Selectmen's meeting room recording tonight. So as long as we're going to record it, and I know we are, that budget workshop from 4 to 6, I'm totally okay with that. That's fine with me.
Do we need 2 hours for what's remaining?
We probably don't even need 2 hours, Mr. Chairman.
But if we're going to do a Zoom meeting, we could take a break. We can have it 4 to 6. If we adjourn earlier, we adjourn earlier. And then we'll just resume our regular meeting at 6.
We could eat dinner, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
In your PJs.
Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion then to have a budget meeting for April 22nd at 4 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. I'll entertain a motion to have our next scheduled Board of Selectmen's meeting for April 22nd at 6 p.m.
I thought you were going to do a break.
Was that, please?
Are you going to do a break?
It depends on.
Yeah, we may go right to 6 o'clock and then start our regular Board of Selectmen's meeting. I suspect we're going to get done a little earlier.
Okay. So moved.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
Yep, sorry, it's
Okay.
the audio.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. I should have asked our town administrator, is that those times okay with you?
I will figure that out. That's no problem. I'm good. Thank you for checking.
Thank you.
You might have to deal with Kevin popping in.
I like it.
Cole is like Cole is, he knows, and he's just like, yep, he like went to the doorway and signed "I love you" to me, and then that's it. Kevin comes in.
I was disappointed that I didn't see Chairman Pacheco's cat at all this meeting.
I know, what happened?
I was waiting for him to walk her to walk across the screen.
Unfortunately, we locked him in the hallway.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
He has a habit of going on the computer and hitting the keys, and
Yeah.
it would be a good idea. I do miss my dog, though. My dog's locked in the room, too.
Oh, these poor animals.
But I do have a couple chickens in my room here. You want to see
Oh,
anything?
nice.
So all of these remaining budgets, so 124, 141, 145, 146, 161, 175, 176, 241, and then all those in the holds on salary section, that's going on our next budget workshop meeting.
Yes.
Okay, and that will wrap everything up for the most part?
Yes.
Okay.
And if I have insurance figures by then, I'll provide those to you, accurate ones, if we need to change the budget. So that'll be good. That's a good situation for us.
Is there a selectman report?
I have a question, really
Yes.
not related to anything, but when we were talking about electricity, are the charging stations, when they're billed for usage, since they are now under the town, would they be under our Constellation Energy contract? Or they weren't there when we first did this?
So
And-
yeah, I believe that it's covered on that negotiated rate, but you as a user, like a member of the public going to use them, pays for it. So the town doesn't pay for their energy use.
So if I had an electric vehicle and stuck my card in, would I be billed at the town rate?
Yes.
And if it's not Constellation, it would be the aggregation rate, I would assume. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're not aggregation member, I'm sorry, if you're not in that program at your home, the idea is using our chargers will be less than any other place that you go to.
Okay.
It's kind of a
I
built-in
just want to
deal.
make a, oh, I'm sorry. I heard an echo. Was someone else speaking? My apologies. Oh, okay,
Nope.
my apologies. I did just want to make a point. I had gotten a bunch of questions about people saying, oh, it doesn't look like you can use your debit or credit card on the charger. That's correct. So my understanding the way the chargers work, and again, I actually do not have yet an electric vehicle, so I hope to get one. But my understanding is ChargePoint does the technology, administers the technology for the electric vehicle charging station. And so you have to have like an account with ChargePoint, and what comes with that account is a card. And so you preload monies on that ChargePoint card that's linked to your account. And so there's no slot. My understanding is you would hold that ChargePoint card up to the charging station in a certain place, and then, the monies would come out of your available balance, essentially, which would be linked to your, which the monies would come from your bank account that you.
Oh, so it's like a T card. It's almost
like a gas card, or
Yeah.
like, remember a mobile card? Like it's something like that.
Cumberland Farms uses that to get the 10 cents lower rate. You got to have their card. Okay, I understand.
So I just wanted to clarify that. So it's a special card that's
Okay.
through the administrator of the actual vehicle charging station.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have one other thing. I'm sorry, but I know Selectman Goulart has one.
Just on the Selectmen's report, I just mentioned that earlier I had gone to the MMA meeting today virtually. We had 21 people. That's probably better than we get in person, even when they give us lunch. The topics today obviously was updates on COVID-19. Nothing new that we don't know anything about. There was some personal experiences mentioned. We talked about the MVP program, and there are communities I'll say behind us, meaning they're not as far ahead with MVP as we are, because I did mention we had, we worked with Fuss and O'Neill, we had our workshops, and we selected projects, the fueling station and the bridges, so forth, so on. So I think we're ahead of the curve on that. Some were worried that their possible funding is going to be further delayed, but that's because they don't have their projects ready, I believe. We discussed the revenue shortfall that's estimated, and that revenue is not coming in at the rates projected, obviously because the casinos are closed, lottery sales are down, business are closed, so sales tax and meals tax, everything is not keeping up with what was projected. The bright light, if there is any in that whole situation, is that there could be down the road, maybe not in the first $1 trillion bailout, but a second round of federal money coming into states that would help cities and towns deal with the shortfall. So that's basically where we were with this whole thing.
Thank you for that report.
Oh, he froze.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, before we move on, I did want to mention one quick thing. I have a couple developments.
Development. I like
I don't know what to call them.
What?
Okay.
Oh, there you are. Okay, I hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, just very quickly. So one of the things that I think, in addition to remote participation, that this current public health situation that we're in has taught us all is how important it is to have communication and not just be able to reach people who have iPads or iPhones or computers and internet and all that, but really to reach people who are kind of off the grid in a sense, who may not have a cell phone, older people who may not be computer savvy, who don't want to deal with a computer. We have those people in town and they matter too. And so one thing that I had the fortunate being having a conversation with a former Brookline city councilor, or selectman rather, was about doing a reverse 911 system where you have everyone's landline number and essentially you do a robocall to everyone's landline in a certain emergency situation. So this would only be used for that. I did just want to say this was a conversation that had probably started long before it ever got to me with the Board of Health. So Roz Grassi, Tom Pyers, our health agent, Matt Tanis, Kevin Bernardo, and it did trickle down to myself and the town administrator. And so we are looking into this both with Nixle, which we've mentioned before, which our administrative assistant Leanne Kerwin had done an extensive analysis on. So I suspect this will be coming before us, or at least come up for discussion again. And this is in addition to that. So this former Brookline selectman did put us in touch with another vendor. And so I just want everyone to be aware that we are learning lessons from the current situation that we're in due to the pandemic. This is one of those conversations that is happening. We're being mindful about it. We do understand the importance of it. And right now, what the conversation comes down to is logistics. It's tough to make progress on things when you can't really have meetings and be in a room with people. But we are aware of this. We do know that this is something that should probably be implemented. These conversations are going to happen. They're going to develop. And we understand why it's important. So I just want to let people know that this is something, and my colleagues, Chairman Pacheco and Selectman Goulart, that these conversations are happening and we will keep everyone up to date on them as well.
Thank you for that.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a couple of announcements that they're really reminders. First of all, the sidewalk projects that we've met with some people about. I have been contacted asking about when payments will be made. If you have had a meeting with Mr. Ferry and me, and you completed the W-9, we are in the process of having the invoices prepared, and hopefully we will have the checks within the next, I'm going to say 2 weeks, maybe less than that, but we're going to do our best. And when those checks are ready, those of you who have completed what is needed to be done, I'll be in touch with you so you can come in, meet with Mr. Ferry and I, sign the agreement, accepting the payment, and you will get the check. I know things are tight for a lot of people, so we're making a special effort to get the money out. That's the first group of people. The second group of people we have mailed W-9s to. If you haven't returned your W-9, I can't get the invoices processed because the W-9s have to go to the town accountant. So if you've got those W-9s, drop them in the box outside or mail them back to the town hall. The third group of people, these are the people that have not responded to the mailings, the certified letters, or in some cases they responded, but by the time they responded to set up meetings, the governor had said we were not going to be having these kinds of meetings. So what I would say to you is please respond if you've got the letter. And for those who have contacted me, as soon as the governor says it's safe to do so, Mr. Ferry and I will schedule those meetings so that we can finish this process and get these payments made to you. And the final announcement is Bristol County Agricultural School is closed to the public. There have been some people who have gone through the back of Town Hall and come out over near where the animals are. The school is closed, however, there are operations going on. There is a large construction site that is obviously closed to the public. But also, the farm itself, although it's operating, is closed to the public, and only the people who have to be there to take care of the animals are actually working. So we ask that you not cut through behind Town Hall or go onto Aggie property. The other thing is, you heard tonight, if you've been watching this meeting, Center Street is going to be closed during the time we said, which means it would not be wise to attempt to walk down along Center Street to go to the river on the sidewalk. I would avoid that area entirely while that water line is being put in. Certainly on the weekends, you can walk to the river, but stay on the sidewalk and don't go on Aggie property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Goulart. We have no correspondence. We have an acknowledgement. We received a letter from Mrs. Patricia Grealish Rust. Dear Dayton Board members, I'm writing today to express my continued gratitude to the firefighters of this town. Several years ago, Tom Medeiros showed my nephew Tristan around the fire department. Tristan had always loved trucks, hats, lights, etc., and he especially loves fire trucks. This past weekend, Tristan stopped by the North Dayton station because he was pretty insistent on seeing the trucks. Sean Urban, another display of kindness from the team, showed Tristan around and let him see the hats and trucks and lights. Tristan has severe and profound special needs. When he's excited, which he was, he can be very loud and enthusiastic. Mr. Urban was very patient and treated my Tristan with respect and good humor. Thank you to everyone in this town that makes it so wonderful to be a resident here. So congratulations to Sean Urban and Tom Medeiros. It's nice to see letters like this and the residents showing appreciation for all the work that you do on a daily basis. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to mention somebody who is a town official who I think has gone out of his way to deal with the virus at his workplace, and that is Zach Karen. Yesterday morning, bright and early at Hannaford's, when they had people lined up and kept us all separately apart, the 6 feet, you know, the masks, the whole thing. Zach was the first person I saw when I entered the vestibule at Hannaford's. Only one, the south entrance was open. He was there cleaning wagons, big smile on his face, greeting people, just doing a great job. And I thought to myself, Zach and all the other people that work in that store are working under a lot of pressure and stress, and it's dangerous, but he was doing such a great job. I just mentioned him publicly. Good job, Zach.
That's no surprise.
No. Uh-oh.
We have another member here. What is the cat's name?
It's the fourth
public
member. He
input.
was just elected.
Oh, what's its name?
Input.
I thought we postponed the election.
What's its name, Brett?
Naja, but I just call him Naj.
Okay.
Second born. It means second born. He's the second.
Oh my God, the poor thing.
Okay, moving along. Minutes. I'll accept a motion to review the minutes of the Board of Selectmen's budget meetings of March 11th, 2020, the emergency meeting of March 16th, as well as the emergency meeting of March 19th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes for the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen of March 11, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Have the minutes changed since we got those minutes? Do we know?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I knew it. I was like, Karen's like, oh, I'll be, or I told Karen I'd be fine.
All I know is Karen said I don't owe her any minutes. So I assume any edits that I had given have all been made. So.
Do you want to wait until we know for sure, Mr. Chairman? How do you want to do this?
Well, Mr. Skula, when did you make those changes last?
Oh.
They haven't changed,
it's
if you
been
can hear me.
Oh, she's here.
Okay.
We hear
Okay.
you.
Hi, Karen.
Is-
Come back, Mrs. Brady. Come
thought she
back to
said
the
they-
light.
I thought she said they haven't changed. Is that correct? Do we know?
They have not.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brady. Did we get a motion already?
No.
Yeah, there was a motion in a second, I believe.
Okay. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Approval of the warrants.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the following warrants dated March 25th be approved. 39A-20, the amount of $94,226.13. 39B-20 in the amount of $26,774.63, both payroll. 39C-20 in the amount of $174,222.05, and 39D-20 in the amount of $57,090.87. Accounts payable be approved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I move that warrants dated April the 1st, the following warrants be approved. 40A-20 in the amount of $91,120.05 payroll. 40B-20 in the amount of $72,513.68. Accounts payable be approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I move that warrants dated April the 8th, numbered 41A-20 in the amount of $90,277.65, and 41B-20 in the amount of $159,012.86. First one being payroll, second one being accounts payable, be approved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion?
Thank you, Cable, and thank you, Mrs. Brady, as well, and everybody who helped get this set up today.
And I just want to say to all of our Christian and Jewish friends, neighbors, relatives, happy Easter, happy Passover. And I know it's difficult to try to celebrate these very important holidays or holy days, but do your best, because everyone's saying we are going to celebrate eventually. So have a good weekend.
May I
Thank you,
make
Paul.
one more comment before we go, Mr. Chairman, very briefly?
Yes.
If you are using the track behind Town Hall, please, please, please be mindful of everyone around you, and please keep socially distanced.
And no dogs. Please, no dogs.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
Thank you,
Thank you, everybody. Have a
Thank
happy
you.
Easter and Passover.
Have a happy
Good night.